official Rob Brown lockdown. Manufactured locally for the Carolinas. This is the Rob Brown Show.
Good morning.
Can you dig it?
Ladies and gentlemen, here is hoping that we don't fumble this opportunity like Derrick Henry. What is happening with you, Derrick Henry? What are we doing, my guy?
It was glorious. It was amazing. Anytime Baltimore loses, I'm just so happy.
Haters, man.
Well, I mean, you pick a team to root for, you pick a team to root against. Doesn't necessarily mean hating, although there is some hate
It's
involved.
a little bit of hate.
You blame it on Derrick Henry, but
No, I didn't blame it just on Derrick Henry, for the record.
Well,
I also blame it on the Ravens offensive line getting Lamar sacked 7 times. If Lamar takes
their
7
defensive
sacks,
line unable to stop the run. Also, those
David Montgomery's a dog.
Those fumbles were caused by the Detroit defense. It wasn't like he went, oh.
That last fumble was like textbook football from Aiden Hutchinson. Kids, if you want to grow up and be a world-famous defensive lineman, I just need you to watch Aiden Hutchinson. Like that guy's a machine. He's a juggernaut.
Coming back from injury. I mean, that's the other thing. You would think he would have lost a step. Maybe he has, but you couldn't tell last night.
Couldn't tell last night. Aiden Hutchinson's a dog. The Ravens offensive line is a steaming pile.
If you are a Ravens fan, you need to be concerned. And if you are an opponent of the Ravens, all you got to do is run the ball. That's all you got to do.
I got a hard time disagreeing right now. It's a real tough time disagreeing with that. And again, if Lamar Jackson gets sacked 7 times, a regular quarterback gets sacked 14 times in that game. Like Lamar, I am very okay while I live and die by the battle cry that wins and losses are not a quarterback stat, because wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. I am also fine with saying that sometimes in losses, quarterbacks are the opposite of the reason that a team lost. And sometimes quarterbacks pitch in to an L quite a bit. Lamar Jackson did not pitch into an L last night. Like Lamar Jackson was doing everything he could do last night. He was just, my man was staring down the barrel of a Panzer the entire night. And that Panzer's name was Aiden Hutchinson.
I think he got a little punch drunk near the end of the game where he could have been a little more patient. And it's just any sign of white jerseys and he was moving. I mean, not moving to run, moving to throw, but still, I mean, there are times maybe he could have stood in there. More than likely, there was no one open.
You ever been in a car accident?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay. Me too. And I can tell you that now. It's been a while since I got clobbered in the Jeep back when I had the Jeep. But, and I'm not in the neighborhood anymore that accident happened, at least not very often. But I will tell you, every time I drive past the place where I had a truck pull out in front of me and crumple the Jeep, every time I drive that particular stretch of road, you better believe the head goes on a swivel. You get trigger shy. Right? That was Lamar Jackson all damn night last night. It's like every time that they ran any sort of contained block on Aiden Hutchinson, right? Like they had Ronnie Stanley's over there on the left tackle. It blew my mind. They were pointing out that Hutch, who last year typically and traditionally lined up on the left edge, last night he was kind of bouncing back and forth. And then I'm like, who is the Ravens right tackle? Like it would make sense to me if there was a rookie right tackle or maybe a backup starting over there or whatever. No, like it's Ronnie Stanley. That's a multi-time Pro Bowler, and Hutch is going 50-50 right to left. But I'm watching this play out, and every time that Baltimore tried to run any sort of contain block on Hutch, right? Left tackle tries to get outside shoulder on Hutch and drive him back to the inside because they want to get, whoever out to the left, whether it was Henry or Hill or whoever. Every time they tried to run a contain on Aiden Hutchinson, the dude just went afterburners to the football. And the part about it that I loved the most about Hutch was this is one of those spots where I'm watching this happen. And to use a wrestling term, I start fantasy booking what I would do if I'm the offensive coordinator. All right. Stretch blocks are letting Aiden Hutchinson just blow past Pro Bowler Ronnie Stanley and get into the backfield. How do I game plan around that? I'm looking at some screens, right? I'm probably going to run away from him as many times as I can. I'm coming to the line with a stretch play that's going away from Hutch every time. It is going to be audible at the line. When you are walking to the line, you find Hutch, and whichever side he's on, we're running the stretch, a million different things, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Aiden Hutchinson has just skyrocketed up the list of dudes that if I'm a middle or high school coach and I'm trying to teach my kids how to play on the D-line, I'm just pulling game film from last night. I'm pulling every snap that Hutch was on the field last night, and I'm like, do that. Everything he did, that's what you do now.
He wasn't the only one either. That entire defense was having their way for the most part, with especially later in the game. I know that I've been lied to by the hype. The hype lies a lot. And the hype told me that defense for Baltimore is one of the best they've ever had. That's what the hype told me.
I'm not disagreeing,
and the
but
people who are spreading that hype are supposedly experts. And all I know is in the AFC right now, it looks like there's one leader. And without a doubt, it's Buffalo. They're going to win everything.
I would hold your metaphorical horses for uno momento, because
the hype usually lies, by the way.
I would hold your metaphorical horses for uno momento, and I would hold them for
they're Clydesdales, by the way.
Whatever kind of horses they are, hold them. All right, just hang on to them for a second. The Ravens are 1-2. Who are the two? The team you described as the obvious front runner right now in the AFC, which is Buffalo. And until the Chiefs dive back into this thing, yes, that's correct.
Right. Buffalo's undefeated, right?
Yes. So you hang on.
Dominantly undefeated, I believe.
Well, I would hold our horses on that, because who's the one team that gave Baltimore a holy bleep game back in week 1? The Baltimore Ravens. That's the only team that's given Buffalo a game.
Baltimore.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
I was excited to get to my point.
They beat themselves.
The only team that has given the Buffalo Bills a game so far that was like and for the record, thus far through 3 weeks, game of the year was Baltimore in week 1.
Also, after game 1, Detroit, it looked like, well, maybe they're not going to be that good.
Correct.
And now they're starting to get mid-season form, even though it's still early in the season.
Correct. So I think my point here about Baltimore would be I wouldn't write them off at 1-2 quite yet, because the only two teams that they have lost to were the number 1 short odds team to win the Super Bowl in the AFC and the number 1 number 1 short odds team to win the Super Bowl in the NFC.
If they give up that amount of yards on the ground next week, will you start to be worried?
Yes. Yeah. Well, okay. Yes is the answer. They gave up 224 rushing yards, including a $151 to Montgomery. 72 of them came on one play.
Well, they were getting 6 to 8 yards a clip when they ran the ball.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
And it was good blocking, but it was also bad tackling on Baltimore's side.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not disagreeing with anything you were saying about Baltimore, to be clear. You are correct. That Baltimore defense right now is
why do you always have to go opposite of me? Why couldn't you be on my side on this case and agree with me?
Because it sounds like you're writing them off. And I think that is probably a bridge too far for me.
I didn't write them off. I was talking about how the hype lied, because the hype was like, this is the team this year. And the hype was wrong. And speaking of, you know who their next opponent is, right?
Who does Baltimore have this week? Are we up? Is it y'all's turn already?
It is the Chiefs. Yes.
Let's see what the early line on that game is. I'm going to say right now.
I think I heard earlier that the line had changed after last night.
I'm sure it has. That's why I'm curious as to what it is this morning. But the Chiefs are still
underdogs.
My pick was going to be right now, I would set that line at Ravens -2.5. I'm going to say I'm going to put it as a field goal game. I'm going to say Ravens -2.5 is my pick right now.
Let's hope it's not a field goal game or the Chiefs are in trouble.
And that's exactly what it is. Ravens at 2.5 as it stands right now. So first off, # nailed it.
Wow. And the problem is, it's the Chiefs at home. So that's
that means that Vegas believes that the Ravens are about a touchdown better than Kansas City right now. And to be honest with you, you know what this is? This is a Notre Dame situation where we spent all last week verbally elbow dropping Notre Dame for being ranked at 0-2 and deserved, because there were a handful of teams below Notre Dame that were undefeated, had won 2 or 3 games at that point. And we were all beating up on Notre Dame. And again, that's a correct way to have handled that. They should not have been ranked at 0-and against a team that was 3-and. It shouldn't have happened. But at the same time, I pointed out last week, and after Notre Dame looked like the Irish expected this week, I said, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. It is a spot where you go, Notre Dame had, we keep talking about South Carolina having the toughest 7-game stretch in the back half. Notre Dame had the toughest 2-game stretch to open the season in football, in college football. Nobody had a tougher opening 2 contest in college football than Notre Dame. And so, we say every year that there should be some level of reward and recognition for teams that actually line it up and play good teams. And the reward and recognition for Notre Dame was, yeah, you're 0-2, but even as an 0-and team, we recognize that that's a tough 0-and. Like, those 2 spots were tough wins, especially now. Miami, now number 2 in the country. Texas A&M, now number, what are they, 9, 8, whatever they are in the country. Notre Dame's 2 losses, both of them to top 10 teams 2 weeks later. So it's kind of like, on one hand, no, they shouldn't have been ranked at 0-and, but on the flip side, I understand why they were ranked at 0-and. That's kind of where I am with Baltimore right now. Like, Baltimore is 1-2. There's a lot of 1-2 teams that we are writing off and going to say, nope, they're done. Like, there's not bounce back.
So right now you pick Baltimore to win.
Right now, today, yes.
Okay.
Right now, today, I would say yes. And here's why.
You know what? You'd be wrong today, and Friday you'll be wrong too if you pick it.
We'll find out. But, Zoe, if I asked you right now offensively, what's the weakness of the Kansas City Chiefs? What is it? I say running the football.
It is. You're right.
Okay. How do you beat Baltimore?
But it's not. They haven't been calling the running game. They keep going away from it. And Kareem Hunt right now is better than Pacheco. And if they put him in, when they put him in, he is getting a ton of yards. If they finally figure it out, okay, let me just put Kareem in there and let him run the ball. And also, you got Kareem Hunt and Pacheco. And you see what happened last night. What was the name of the running backs that did that last night?
Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. I'd be real careful about saying Jameer Gibbs ain't a dog.
By the way, I was going to say, would you at least compare the two evenly, or would you say that Detroit has a leg up, that those running backs are better than Pacheco and Kareem Hunt?
Over the history of their careers, I'd say it's even. Through 3 games, I'd say Detroit has a leg up. Not much. It's like a little leg. It's like a little baby. It's like a stone man leg. It's a little baby leg.
I think you're looking at overall. I'm just talking about the running backs themselves. I'm not talking about the offensive lines that they're running behind. I'm just talking about the running backs, the quality of running backs, and probably, if we look at the stats, I would guess probably Kareem Hunt has better stats than all of them.
Well, we can check that. But here's what I do know. My favorite, I don't know why it's my favorite phrase that somebody said. I've heard it a million times growing up, but for some reason somebody said it to me a couple of weeks ago, and it's just like, I was like, that saying is absolutely bat bleep insane. If my aunt had wheels, she'd be a bicycle. It's like, I get the point of it, but is that the best way we can come up with saying if Kansas City? Yes, I agree with you. If Kansas City, we're 3 weeks into the season, you haven't done it yet. It's kind of that spot of, yes, if Kansas City does this. But I've got 3 weeks of film so far, and they haven't yet. And I would say, after you lost to San Diego, you lost to LA in week 1.
The number 1 team in.
Agreed. But they weren't at the time. At the time, you were 0-1 against a team that we were going, maybe they're back, maybe they're good, maybe they're not.
When you played, that was the first game, and so no one had anyone.
That's what I'm saying.
You said 0-1. So no one knew who the number 1 team was at that point. because
Okay, I shouldn't have said
everyone was even.
at 0-1. And week 1, before you had any other games, yes, we all went, maybe the Superchargers are a squad this year. We're going to find out. You went 0-1.
When we were picking, I said to look out for them.
I agree.
And
so did I.
Yeah.
It's not a bad pick, but the point is we still didn't know. We thought, but at the time we didn't. And we didn't know what anybody was in week 1. That's kind of the fun of week 1. Now, with that being said, I would have thought with the importance of the game you had in week 2 against Philly, and it being at the home, we must protect this house, a click-clack, and with the narrative was attached to the result of that game, I would have thought if that was going to happen, and if you've got to keep A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, and Jalen Hurts off the field, that would have been a spot Kansas City starts to lean on the run game to control the game. You didn't do it then either. And then, yes, you won week 3. But it was, to me, dramatically closer game than it needed to be down the stretch. And there's a bunch of other reasons that go on there. But the tape is the tape at this point.
In the end, these are 2 teams with 1 win, I believe.
That is correct.
Yeah, so I mean, these are 2 losing teams playing each other.
But again, I would make the argument that because context and nuance in every conversation is important here on the Rob Brown Show. Baltimore's 2 losses are better than your 2 losses, even though your 2 losses are to the defending Super Bowl champs and to the LA Chargers, who, yes,
Wow.
I agree.
Wow. Okay.
Who's a better 2 losses?
Okay. Any loss is a bad loss.
No, see, again, like this is something that you and I have butted heads on the entire time we've worked together. No 2 losses are equal and no 2 wins are equal. It's just not like, I understand at the end of the year when we determine the playoffs, we don't go, well, they had 1 more loss, but they had better losses. That's college football. We absolutely do that.
That's college for
In
sure.
the NFL, it's just an objective reality. You have X wins and X losses, and everybody else has X wins and Y losses, and that's why you fit into this bracket the way you fit into it. But for the context of the conversation we're having, yeah, Baltimore had 2 close losses against the shortest odds to win the Super Bowl from the NFC and the shortest odds to win the Super Bowl in the AFC. I think that there's something to be said for that. All right, let's take a break. We're going to talk a lot of NFL on the show this morning. We will get back to college football as well because, hey, for the folks that have been saying for a while, you got to stop talking about the portal and NIL when it comes to Dabo Swinney. Cool. Maybe you'll listen to, I don't know, Nick Saban because he had thoughts. We'll get those for you coming up later in the show. We will talk more about the NFC South. Can Carolina stay consistent into week 2? And why are the Braves good now? 9 wins in a row? Going into the weekend, they get eliminated from the postseason. What are we doing? I'm Rob. He's Alonzo. You're listening to The Rob Brown Show. You're listening to The Fan Upstate. Oh, I thought I nailed that drop.
You did nail the drop, but my mic was still on to avoid, what usually happens and me forgetting to turn my mic on. So,
All right, guys, be right back. We'll be right back. We'll be right back. I'm gonna go take my pills. Brown Show on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Can the Carolina Panthers maintain consistency into week 4? That is the question that this team will be asking to me all week long. How do we carry what we did last week into this week? How do we make sure that after opening the way that we opened and then turning around and hanging 30-0 on Atlanta in week 3, how do we make sure that in week 4 we do the same thing? How do we make sure that when we are on the road at the New England Patriots this Sunday at Foxborough, a Patriots team that, by the way, if they, I'm going to say decrease their turnover rate by 1 last week, they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost with, 5 turnovers in that game, and they lost by a score. They needed 1 fewer. All they had to do was only turn the ball over 4 times, and they beat Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So how do you maintain consistency? And I am going to go with, it feels to me like a relatively simple answer. And it is something that the great one has been screaming about this team, metaphorically, sometimes literally, but mostly metaphorically, about this team a lot. Balance. Balance at the least, if not balance to the run. 30 rushing attempts, 24 passing attempts this weekend. I would say the second thing, and this is something that has, in my opinion, haunted this team dating back to week number 1. The drops have to decrease. Now, I've already given you my theory on Xavier Legette. I don't really think Xavier Legette is, I'm not saying he's not banged up, but I don't think it's can't play banged up. I think Xavier Legette is getting the Bryce Young treatment. We're going to give you an opportunity to sit, to get your head right. We're going to take all the pressure off of you, right? And the way that Dave Canales talked about him going into last weekend, it sounded to me like there may be a little bit more to this story than just minor injury and some R&R. It sounded like there may be some level of concern about where Xavier Legette is mentally. And I'm not talking about anything dramatic. I'm just saying maybe it's a pressure buildup. Maybe he heard, unfortunately, the conversation where people were starting to question him.
He's got the yips. I mean, and how do you get past that?
And that's the question. I've been golfing for a very long time. I have seen dudes as high as on the tour, as low as guys that are, country club champs in local tournaments. I have seen the yips. And the answer is there is no answer. It just, you either do or you don't. You dial in, you try to take all the mental pressure off, right? You try to create a world where there's not a lot hanging over you so that you can just golf. Or in this case, you can just run your route, understand where you are on the field, and catch the football. And so I'm wondering if maybe that's what's happening here. But it is also the reason I've said a few times, Jalen Coker is eligible to return to this football team after this week. IR put him down for 4 games. He is eligible. Does not mean he will return, but he is eligible to return after 4 weeks. So after this weekend's game. And I do think that based on what we've seen out of Jalen Coker so far in his young career, Jalen Coker is a guy you have to make room for on this roster. And I do wonder if the timing of XL getting the hook wasn't to some degree related to, we're going to give you a week, I guess technically 2 weeks. We're going to give you 2 weeks. We're going to put you back in. Do we see Xavier Legette back in the starting lineup this week? And we're going to give you a game to prove that you're the guy. Because outside of that, who of the pass catchers in the game this past weekend, right now today, who are you sitting down to put Jalen Coker in their roster spot? Because the only answer at this point, in my opinion, the only answer is Xavier Legette. But that kind of goes part and parcel with the concept of consistency. Run the football, be balanced, right? Like, I have zero problem. Y'all know I love me some BY, my special baby boy BY. I don't have a problem if you run the ball. Scratch that. I encourage you to run the ball more than you throw it. You should be utilizing the run in order to open up the field so that BY can play a more surgical pass game than feeling like every, 2 downs, he's got to heave one down the field to McMillan or Tremble up the gut or whatever. Like, you can't do that. This is part of the reason that on Monday, yesterday, when we were breaking this game down, I said, if you look at the statistics here, 16 of 24, 121, no tutties, no picks for BY. I think a lot of people would look at that statistic and they would say, that's a pretty unimpressive NFL game out of a guy who's supposed to be a franchise quarterback. It's not that impressive of a stat line. But I would make the point that this was a game where sometimes you need your superstars to be superstars, and sometimes you need your superstar to just do what you need them to do within the context of the team. And I think BY this past weekend just did what BY needed to do in the context of the game itself. BY, in the context of the game, did not need big explosive plays. I would also point out again, there were, once again, for the third week in a row, too many drops. There were just too many drops. There were too many drops by the Carolina Panthers. And that is something that needs to be addressed and worked on. Atlanta just fired Ike Hilliard, their wide receiver coach. Why? Too many drops. Like, our wide receivers are not where they need to be. And when they are there, they're dropping the football. I'm going to play a clip for you in a little while. Raheem Morris was asked at a press conference yesterday why he decided to go to Kirk Cousins late in that game this weekend. And B, if Kirk Cousins is going to get an opportunity to earn the QB1 spot back. And Raheem Morris shut that down with a one-word no. And we'll talk about that coming up in a little while, because I got to tell you, as much grief as I've given Raheem Morris over the years, I thought that was an excellent moment in coaching. And I'll tell you why. But the point of this is that he is looking and going, we've got a situation where our young quarterback, and yes, I do still consider Bryce Young to be a young quarterback. Our young quarterback is being impacted adversely by what another group of dudes on the football field are doing. And Raheem Morris, in my opinion, by shutting down the Kirk Cousins for QB1 talk as rapidly and as sternly as he did, was basically saying, that guy's not doing anything wrong. I mean, it's not that he's not doing anything wrong, but he's not doing that much wrong. He's not doing it so wrong that we're at a point that we feel like we need to give up on Michael Penix Jr. after 3 games. I've got to think, if the drops get cleaned up, statistically speaking, BY looks dramatically better. I would say, and we'll ask Rashad Beard about this on Friday, because this was a narrative that he and I were both talking about at the end of last year, the Panthers suffering from the dropsies. I asked Rashad, how many yards of total passing offense do you think were left on the field last year because of drops from receivers with BY passes that they needed to catch? And Rashad's answer was a lot, which is the correct answer. I would guess through 3 games so far, I would guess we've got to be close to 150, 160 dropped passing yards. And some of that is assumption of Yak Daddy yards. Some of that is assumption of that guy was open and he had another 6, 7, 10, 12 yards to play with after he made the catch before the drop. But I would suspect we're probably sitting on 150 worth of yards that could be added to BY's passing yardage total right now as a direct result of drops. And I understand no player is going to be perfect. I understand no player is going to not, like, even the best wide receivers are going to have an oops-a-daisy every now and then. I'm not expecting perfection. What I am saying is, if we're not going to expect perfection, I still think we need to take into consideration what those numbers say and what those numbers mean. This game where BY ended with 121 passing yards, and the narrative about him over the week was, well, like the run game carried 110 rushing yards, 73 from Chuba Hubbard. The run game carried him, yada, yada, yada. And I'm not saying that's untrue. I'm saying that's by design. It's supposed to be that way. But I think we've got to factor in probably 30 to 40 minimum dropped pass yards. BY probably sitting somewhere at like 150, 160, maybe a touchdown, throw it in there. And even with that number, it was still very much do what you are supposed to do to make this team run as efficiently as possible. I don't think Carolina is a team yet or right now, or frankly will be, even if Tetairoa McMillan continues to get better, because that dude looks like a dog. But even if he continues to get better, I think this team is not a team that is built, designed, or most efficiently going to operate with stars making star plays. It's going to operate by being efficient, economical with the football, limiting the possession time of the other team, keeping it to a minimum. I think those are the things that this team needs to do to be consistent in week 3. I don't expect them to go on the road and go for 300, 3 touchdown through the air, 150 on the ground. I expect them to do what they did against Atlanta and have possession time that is 5-6 minutes better than New England's. Keep Drake May on the bench. And when he is out there, make him play in a way that he has to be a star to keep up with you. Because it is when players, especially underdeveloped players, have to be stars that they make mistakes. I think that was the case with Bryce Young in the first half of last year. When he came back and the pressure was off and that pressure was gone, now all of a sudden he's not trying to be a star. He's just going, how do I be efficient with the football? Do that, and the consistency shows up. I think. We'll see. When we come back, major scheduling news for the ACC and the SEC. It's not the same major scheduling news from yesterday. It's different major scheduling news. I'll tell you what it is next on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. Morning lawn tractor life. Yes, indeed. It has been scientifically proven that if you listen to the Rob Brown Show, you won't get monkeypox. As so far, no one who does has. Be right back. 844-326-3663 is the number. 844-FANFONE. Two massive scheduling stories dumping yesterday. One out of the Southeastern Conference, one out of the Atlantic Coast Conference. We'll start with the SEC. The SEC is set today to release its new 9-game schedule for the 2026 season. The new schedule is going to feature a 9-game format for every team in the conference. Half of the teams in the conference will play 5 home games and 4 road games. The other half will play 4 home games and 5 road games. Those will rotate every year. You'll play 5 and 4 one year. You'll play 4 and 5 the next. The second biggest part of this is that every SEC team will play every SEC team every other year, meaning that if you play a full 4 years of college football, you will play every team in the conference at home and away at least one time during your time playing football in the SEC. The third revelation about this was that each team would be partnered up with 3 annual rivalries. You would have 3 teams that you play every year. Your other 6 games would be on a rotating basis. Alabama drew Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. Keep in mind, before I start reading you who got partnered up with who, that the SEC said when they would be designing these 3 annual rivalries for every team in the conference, that they would take into consideration a few things when deciding who would be partnered up with which other 2 teams. One of them was the protection of historic rivalries. They wanted to keep Texas and Texas A&M together. They wanted to keep Auburn and Alabama together. But there are a few spots where they did not necessarily do that. And we'll get to that coming up in a few minutes. Alabama gets partnered with Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. Right out of the gate, I have an issue. Now, it does make sense, obviously, that Alabama gets partnered with Auburn. The SEC is not going to do away with one of college football's best rivalry, the Iron Bowl. It makes sense that Alabama would get partnered up with Tennessee. They're not going to do away with the first Saturday in October or second Saturday, whatever Saturday, that one Saturday in October. They're not going to do away with that rivalry. The Mississippi State one is interesting, and it does lead me to a spot because I really would have thought that you would have seen Mississippi State out of this spot and you would have seen LSU in this spot. LSU's 3 games are Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Texas A&M, the Colt. LSU Ole Miss makes sense. While it is not necessarily on the register nationally of the best rivalries in sports, this LSU Ole Miss rivalry dates back like a century and some change. I have got friends and family down in Louisiana that are very fond of yelling very loudly on that week, "Go to hell, Ole Miss." And Ole Miss people in the Grove who are fond of yelling loudly, "Go to hell, LSU." That's like the catchphrase of that rivalry. So I get why that one stuck. But why did we do away with LSU Florida? That game has, interestingly enough, over the past handful of years, has really shaped into kind of a fun rivalry because it is 2 of the weirdest fan bases in sports. It's a bunch of drunk Cajuns down in Southeast Louisiana, and it's a bunch of jorts-wearing, corn dog-eating weirdos down in Gainesville. Like, that rivalry has developed into something fun, but it was not protected. Instead, they give LSU Texas A&M. Like, I get what you're trying to do in playing into the Louisiana-Texas narrative there because they are butted up against each other. But that's tough. Texas says you can't give Bama LSU. That would be the toughest draw by far. And that's very fair if you believe that Auburn is a top-tier product right now. They did lose to Oklahoma this weekend. Not a bad loss. That's not a bad football team. But it's also a football team that, as we talked about quite a bit coming into this season, has a head coach that I think is a little bit fraudulent in Hugh Freeze, and a head coach that I suspect probably will not be the head coach much longer. Arkansas gets, obviously, LSU. They also get Texas and Missouri. Like Arkansas, LSU. There is a rivalry there with the trophy they play for. It's called the Golden Boot, because if you look at Arkansas down in LSU with the little, it's not like a peninsula of LSU because it's landlocked, but not landlocked, but it's only coastal on one side, so it looks like a boot. You get it, the Golden Boot.
I don't know why you're going for extreme explanation here. Everyone knows it looks like a boot.
Yeah, but like there's different kinds of boots. You know,
that's how people remember that state,
because it doesn't really look
especially
like
when you're a kid. You're like, okay, this is that thing.
Yeah. It's a boot. Like you got the four corners. We all know, what is it? Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and Arizona form the four corners. Michigan makes the glove. You get it. Florida's the one that smells bad. You get it. There's ways to remember states. I'm from there. I can say it.
Okay, because
you can't say it.
I don't remember.
Well,
I can say what I want, but I don't remember, and I still haven't been there, so I don't know. Maybe it does stink.
But like that rivalry is not one that at least my family, like nobody at LSU looks at Arkansas as if it's like a big rivalry. Like, oh yeah, can't wait for that big Arkansas game. I don't know. Some of these are weird. Auburn gets Alabama, no shock. They get Georgia, no shock. That's the oldest rivalry in the South. If you're protecting historic rivalries, that's the most historic one. And as a little bit of a bone thrown in, Auburn's final opponent is Vanderbilt. Now, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, that would have been like hey, thanks SEC for taking care of us. You gave us Alabama and you gave us Georgia. Thanks for throwing us towards the bottom for the third one. But like now, that's not really a thing. Like Vandy gave Auburn everything they wanted last year. Georgia gets Auburn, Florida, and partner number 1 for the University of South Carolina. You get Georgia annually moving forward, which when we asked the question a couple of weeks ago when this format was announced, we asked South Carolina fans, which 3 SEC schools do you want to be partnered up with for your annual rivalries? I will say, if I recall correctly, I think Georgia was the only one that like the majority of you guys said needed to be an annual rival. It needed to be Georgia. That makes sense. You're next door. I get it. Georgia gets Auburn, Florida, South Carolina. Florida gets Georgia, world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Screw you, Greg Sankey. That's what it is, was, and forever shall be. Kentucky and partner number 2 for the Gamecocks of South Carolina. You will play Florida on an annual basis moving forward. And Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, and partner number 3 for the Gamecocks of South Carolina. Your 3 annual opponents are the Georgia Bulldogs, the Florida Gators, and the Kentucky Wildcats. Zoe, is that the right 3 partners for South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky?
Sure. And if you look historically how they played those 3 opponents, it's been interesting, especially the Georgia thing. And you may think, and it may be true, that Georgia has the advantage as far as record goes, but there was a time back in the day when South Carolina and Georgia played
every year.
You wanted to watch because you didn't know the score might be 15-12 or something weird like that.
Some of these are also, obviously some of them are playing into historic rivalries. Some of them are playing into geographic rivalries, right? Like Georgia, South Carolina, they're next door. And that's a type of rivalry that can impact recruiting in a big way too, right? Like if South Carolina was to theoretically roll off 2 or 3 against Georgia, well, maybe those recruiting tentacles of South Carolina start to spread over into the little towns halfway between here and Atlanta.
And Kentucky has to do with sunglasses.
I absolutely think it does. Here was my question, though. If I gave you the choice between South Carolina, Kentucky, and South Carolina, Mizzou, who would be the 3rd squad there? Or is there somebody else? Is there a dark horse?
Who would you rather play? Definitely Kentucky.
Yeah, I think you'd rather play Kentucky. But if we were looking at this through the lens of creating the most entertaining annual rivalries of all, Kentucky has fallen off a cliff. Like they had 1 or 2 good years there under Mark Stoops, under not Bob Stoops. They had 1 or 2 good years where it's like, oh, maybe Kentucky's on the rise. They stink now. Like they might be the worst team in the Southeastern Conference now. So, I get you would rather play them from the standpoint of like, let's have a win on the schedule every year. But I kind of feel like Mizzou has kind of become the baby rivalry for South Carolina. I kind of feel like that's the baby rivalry now. The Battle of Columbia, what do they call it? The Mayor's Cup, right? And I guess there is some element of you're still going to be playing them every other year, like home, then off a year, then away, then off a year, then home, whatever. And I think that's great because I do think if you only have the opportunity to earn the cup back, first off, South Carolina fans, genuine question. Do you care about the Mayor's Cup? Like, they made this thing a thing, obviously, because you both play in a town called Columbia, and cool, fun. We'll do anything we can do to, like, hype a thing in college football. It's wrestling. Anything you can do to hype your match, you're going to do it. But is the Mayor's Cup a thing that you guys, like, when it comes back to Columbia, South Carolina, is it sitting out front of the football building as, like, a thing we accomplished?
How long does it have to be around before it's historic? Because Missouri hasn't been in the SEC that long, I don't think. Maybe.
I mean, longer than Texas A&M and Oklahoma, or Texas and Oklahoma.
That's true, but still, I mean,
I get it. I guess that's kind of why I'm asking the question. Like, do South Carolina fans have any level of care, respect, whatever about the Mayor's Cup, or does this kind of feel like a forced rivalry? Texter says, as a South Carolina fan, I've always hated the narrative of us and Mizzou. The rivalry feels forced. I'm glad we aren't playing them every year. I get that. Like, that's kind of the question I'm asking. Is it a forced rivalry? The answer would be yes, but I would also say you guys have had some football games the last couple of years, including this year. It was a game. I'm disappointed in how South Carolina played, but it was a game. All right, real quick, through the rest of these, and we'll talk more about this, and we'll get to the ACC scheduling announcement in the next hour. Florida gets Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina. Kentucky gets Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee. LSU gets Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. Two classic rivalries enforcing the Louisiana-Texas narrative. Mississippi State gets Alabama, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt. That one actually kind of makes sense to me. Missouri gets Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. I'm fine with that. I think the old Big 12 teams should probably be in a gravitational orbit with each other. Mizzou gets Arkansas, Oklahoma, and A&M. Oklahoma gets Mizzou, Ole Miss, and Texas. Ole Miss gets LSU, obviously, Mississippi State, obviously, and Oklahoma. That one kind of feels a little forced, but we'll come back to that later. South Carolina, as we mentioned, Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky. Tennessee gets Alabama, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. I really would have preferred Tennessee, Georgia. That's the right matchup there, right? Like, I think Tennessee, Georgia would have been a better classic rivalry. Texas gets Arkansas and Oklahoma and Texas A&M. That one they absolutely got right. Texas A&M gets LSU, Mizzou, and Texas. All right, fine. Vandy gets Auburn, Mississippi State, and Tennessee, obviously, annually. We'll talk more about these later on in the show. We'll get your ACC scheduling news when we come back. Texter says the Columbia Cup feels forced, but it is a fun rivalry. That's what I would agree with. Like, it feels like a forced rivalry, but it's kind of gotten a little fun. You know what's not forced and is always fun? A sports flash.
The Detroit Lions improved to 2-1 with a 38-30 win over the Ravens on Monday night. Baltimore had the ball down a field goal with minutes to play, but Derrick Henry's third fumble in 3 games allowed Detroit to pad the lead. David Montgomery starred for the Lions, rushing for 151 yards and a pair of touchdowns, and Jahmyr Gibbs added 2 more on the ground. The Atlanta Braves were eliminated from the playoffs last weekend, but have been white hot down the stretch, winning 9 consecutive games with last night's 11-5 win over the Nationals. Atlanta had 14 hits, including a Ronald Acuna Jr. home run. Auburn basketball coach Bruce Pearl stepped down unexpectedly yesterday after guiding Auburn to its second ever Final Four appearance. Pearl has been with the Tigers for 11 years. His son, Steven, was immediately promoted to head coach and given a 5-year contract. Hour number 2 of the Rob Brown Show is coming up next.
When your name's on Paint Job, your primer better hold up. Painters trust Kills
primers for serious adhesion, stain blocking, and a finish that lasts. Now, the full Kills lineup is available exclusively at the Home Depot. Need it fast? Get same day or next day delivery, or order online and pick it up in store. Kills primers, pro results, faster. The Home Depot. If you're a pro, you know.
If Old Spice Deep Sea Super Hydration Body Wash were music, what would it sound like? Start with the deep sounds of Old Spice's Ocean Waves and Kelp. Layer on the smooth renewing moisture. You wouldn't hear any benefits of color because Old Spice Deep Sea hasn't got any. But you would hear that vitamin D3 for healthy.
All right, dudes and dudettes on the stream. I'm going to ask this a few times during the course of the show, but I'll start now. The wife and I's anniversary was this past Sunday, but she was out of town, so we're celebrating on Saturday. I need, on Saturday, a nice, off-the-beaten-path restaurant to celebrate the anniversary at. Like somewhere that is not super well-known, is upscale, is nice, somewhere that I can take her that we likely haven't been before, that takes reservations. Any ideas? Any thoughts? If you got one, drop it in the chat. I would love to know.
How often do you eat in Spartanburg? Do you want it to be in the Greenville area? I mean, where
it doesn't matter all that much because it's like we're dedicating the whole late afternoon through night to it. So like we're not against driving. I wouldn't be against driving a little bit.
Celebrating Friday night rivals, televising college basketball games, bringing the fan fest, semi-pro soccer, or taking you out to the ball game at your minor league party. We're here for the fans. No one gets the dedication of a home team with you guys. And you've got all the sports you can handle. It's all in the bag. Ingles, low prices, love the savings.
Oh, could this vintage stuff be any cuter, right? And the best part? Except Discover. Except Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer. Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's a ticket where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times. Right, so we shouldn't get the parachute pants? These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
Tulsa is my home now. Academy Award nominee Sylvester Stallone stars in the Paramount Plus original series, Tulsa King. This distillery is a very interesting business. We got to know the enemy. From Tina Sheridan.
The Peddler. Is that the same? Is that a steakhouse? Is that the same as the Peddler Steakhouse in Greenville, Jacob? Kind of want to know, but not super crazy. And it's nice. Okay. I will look into it. Is it connected to the one that's in Greenville? And in fairness, it doesn't matter if it does, because I actually haven't been to that one yet. So somebody told me about Between the Trees. Has anybody been there? Is that still a place? I know there's that little French spot. We've been there. That place is pretty good. Okay. That's one. I'll count it. That's one.
Good night.
Yeah, that's one. Hour number 2 of the Rob Brown Show underway. It is the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown, that's me. The Great One Monzo, that's he. And we are glad to have you along with us every weekday morning from 6 until 10 a.m. as we bring you the most off-the-rails and electrifying sports talk radio show in all of entertainment. We're talking some college football in this hour of the show. You know, I have heard a few times that the narrative about Dabo needing to embrace NIL and the portal and yada, yada, yada is it's tired, Rob. It's not the real issue here, Rob. And I honestly don't have a problem with that, but I'm also going to say that if you won't listen to me when I say it, perhaps, perchance, maybe you'll listen when Nick Saban has something to say. And we're going to get to that here in just a few minutes. I would also like to get to some commentary that was made yesterday because old Dabo did his radio show last night. And there were a couple of quotes in it that I found, we'll say, for me, maybe not for Clemson fans, somewhat entertaining.
Is he still not taking calls?
He is still not taking calls. That
Okay.
is correct.
Right.
He is still not taking calls. Tyler from Spartanburg did a number. Tyler from Spartanburg changed Dabo's radio show, and he has not gone back to the old format since.
I wonder if that call screener is still in radio.
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. What is it the same call screener, or have they moved on? But we'll talk a little bit about a couple of the comments that Dabo said yesterday, including one that is going to, I think, I'm going to cause a mild bit of controversy and uncomfortability.
Not you. You wouldn't do that.
Not on purpose.
Okay. All right.
Not on purpose, but I heard 2 or 3 things yesterday that I was like, nah, don't love that. Don't love that, Dabo. I mean, I get it, but I don't love it. So we'll get to that coming up a little bit later on in the radio show. We have got, obviously, we mentioned the SEC scheduling news in the last segment of the show. If you missed it, the South Carolina Gamecocks have had their 3 annual rivalries. Actually, you know what? This is dumb. That's a thing we're about to talk about. We're about to talk about it because it is 7:03 in the morning. You have less than 57 minutes until you've got to be to the office. It is Tuesday, which means that you have 2 days to kill until we get to Thursday night college and NFL football. Then you've got another day and a half to kill before we get to Saturday, and we run it back in the landscape of college football. I know what's going on. You're just trying to kill time. You're just trying to get there. You're just trying to make it to football weekend one more time again. Will allow us to help. The best way to kill time, easy. The best way to kill time is by talking sports at the office with your boss or your manager, your supervisor, your coworkers, whoever you're obligated to spend time with. At least you can talk some sports. Talking sports is a great way to kill time until we get to the next round of sports. So let's help you do that. That's why we, every morning, do this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar, the almanac of the absurd, and the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers saying,
To win games, you have to win the game, not lose the game.
bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the water cooler cheat sheet on the Fan Upstate.
In fairness, he's not wrong.
Well, no, he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
To win games, you got to not lose the game.
You know what?
That's,
I don't think we ever actually got to that clip, did we?
You did not. No, you
I
did
think we
not.
did. I think I teased it. I think I got to it because you guys started blowing up my text line that day with football stuff. We might circle back around to that. We'll see how the show goes. I got a lot of stuff to get
That's
to.
still football stuff.
It is football stuff. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But in the meantime, football stuff. Item number 1. News and notes out of the National Football League. We start with, of course, last night's contest. Monday Night Football. The Detroit Lions moved to 2-1. They dropped the Baltimore Ravens to 1-2 with a 38-30 victory on MNF. Jared Goff, 202 yards on 20 of 28 through the air, threw for a touchdown, but it was the ground game. The definition of ground and pound for the Detroit Lions, 224 rushing yards last night. 151 of them belong to David Montgomery. He'd carried the ball just 12 times, went for 151 and a pair of tutties, including a 72-yarder in the contest. Jahmyr Gibbs had 22 carries, 67 yards, but he also scored twice, was getting the majority of the short yardage situations. And through the air, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 7 grabs, 77 yards, and a touchdown, responsible for the most yardage of the 202 thrown by Jared Goff. But it was the Detroit Lions defense last night that was impeccable. They sacked Lamar Jackson, not Matt Stafford, not Danny Dimes, not a pocket passer quarterback, Lamar, 7 times for 55 lost yards on the ground. Lamar was 21 of 27, 288 and 3 times. Like, I can't imagine that when Lamar Jackson got to the locker room last night, he didn't have steam coming out of his ears like an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon, because that dude was out there doing everything in his friggin' power to win this football game, and his offensive line was just letting him get, I would say, assaulted, maybe criminally, by Aiden Hutchinson, who just lived in the Baltimore backfield.
I think it's more battery.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Whatever one of those two works, that's what happened to him last night. Derrick Henry, 12 carries, just 50 yards, did have a touchdown, but he also had his 3rd fumble. He has now fumbled and turned the ball over in every game so far this season. Here was a number that somebody threw at me earlier this morning, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit. 243 previous carries, Derrick Henry fumbled 3 times. He's fumbled 3 times in the last 43
Do you
carries.
remember when he used to be feared?
I still think he is.
I don't know. Those guys took care of him pretty easily. I think Saquon's taken his place.
Oh, as the best in the game? I don't disagree.
Let
me
me
rephrase
the
that.
back that you don't want to play.
Let me rephrase that. When I say Derrick Henry is feared, I don't think there's a defender in the league that looks forward to having to tackle Derrick Henry when he has a full head of steam. You know what I love last night about the Detroit Lions defense? They didn't let him have that. Like the fear of Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is quite literally the juggernaut. That's it. That's a dated meme for you youngsters out there.
I got it. Well, it's a movie reference, but still.
For you, well, the movie reference was because of the meme.
No,
I
know
it's
that.
the best.
Okay.
Derrick Henry is the juggernaut. But he's much like the juggernaut, whose mutant power is the ability to control inertia, by the way, if you want to dive into the nuts and bolts of the nerdum here. Much like the juggernaut, he has to build the inertia first. Detroit was like, nope. If that cat touches the football, collapse to him. Just collapse wherever he goes. Maybe he makes a cutback. Maybe he makes a jump cut. Maybe he finds a hole. But he will have to shift his momentum once or twice. He is not going to get a straight line run head of steam at us. On the flip side, Aiden Hutchinson's a dog. That fumble that he forced on Derrick Henry in the 4th quarter that I'm not going to say won the game, because Detroit did still have to go score to make it a 2-score game, but effectively won the game for the Detroit Lions. It was spectacular. Now, here's the interesting part. We're going to talk about this a little later in the show. By the end of next Sunday, either the Baltimore Ravens or Kansas City Chiefs will be 1-3. One of those two teams will be 1-3 next Sunday night. However, and this is why football is fun, whichever one of those two teams is 1-3 will have lost to 3 of the best teams in the NFL. If it is Kansas City, they will have lost to the LA Chargers. They will have lost to the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, and they would have lost to one of the top 3 shortest odds getters for the Super Bowl out of the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. If Baltimore loses, they would have lost to the Buffalo Bills, the shortest odds getter in the AFC, the Detroit Lions, the second shortest odds getter in the NFC behind only the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Kansas City Chiefs, who are, and this is true, I looked it up, the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's like one of these teams next Monday, we are going to ask the question, Lonzo, is this the best 1-3 team in NFL history? And it will be a valid question, I think.
That's a scary. Doesn't it seem like some of these schedules are front loaded in the NFL?
A couple of them, y'all's is for sure. For sure. You get Philly, Baltimore, and LA all right out of the gate. Woof. All right, a couple of other bits of news very quickly from around the rest of the NFL. The 49ers have officially lost Nick Bosa for the year, tore his ACL in that win this weekend. He is done for the season. Najee Harris is out for the year. We saw the injury that he sustained in that game this weekend against Denver, an Achilles tear for Najee Harris. So he is out. The Atlanta Falcons have fired wide receiver coach Ike Hilliard after their offense completely flopped against the Panthers this past weekend. And because Jerry can't stay away away from a microphone. Jerry Jones, not only is he an excellent GM, ladies and gentlemen, also a fantastic doctor and orthopedic surgeon. Jerry Jones has now said that it is a possibility that CeeDee Lamb may find his way onto the injured reserve list, and it has been confirmed that James Conner will need surgery to his foot, not his ankle, in that from that injury he suffered against the 49ers. But he will miss the rest of the season. Let's get to item numero dos. Baseball, of course, coming to its conclusion yesterday, the Atlanta Braves, because the only way to make this season, which is now officially guaranteed to be a losing season, the Braves cannot get to 500 anymore. The only way to make it worse is for the Braves to turn into the expected Braves down the stretch. They won their 9th consecutive game last night, 11-5 over the Nationals. Chris Sale, 5 innings, gave up 3 hits, 5 runs, all earned, but he did strike out 6 as well. He got the win last night from the dish. The Atlanta Braves, excellent. 14 hits last night. A Ronald Acuna dong. You also got extra base hits from Michael Harris II and Drake Baldwin. Drake Baldwin might have gone ahead and won the Rookie of the Year award last night. Jurickson Profar, Marcelo Zuna, Ronald Acuna Jr., Allen Harris, Baldwin, and Nacho Alvarez all had RBIs in this game. Harris and Acuna's and Allen's all came with 2 outs. The team was 7 of 16 with runners in scoring position. That's the Braves we wanted earlier in the year. That's what we've been looking for the whole bleeping time, Atlanta. Thanks for showing up when it doesn't matter because you got eliminated this weekend. Whatever. We'll talk more about that later on. But unfortunately, some bad news. Not that it matters. Should be ready for next year. Atlanta second baseman Ozzie Albies left the game last night with a fractured, I think, hamate bone in his left hand. I think it's hamate. I'm not sure. I should have looked it up. Anyway, Albies showed discomfort in his wrist after fouling off a pitch in the 3rd inning while batting against Connor Pilkington. That's a hell of a name. Connor with a K, by the way. Connor Pilkington III. Stayed in the game for one more pitch, then walked towards the dugout, was attended to by the training staff. Turns out that he has a broken hamate bone. I did the research for what it is, but not what it's named, how it's said.
You sure it's not hamate?
Nope, I'm not sure.
Because there's an E on the end of it.
So I don't know if that makes it hamate. I don't know. What I do know is it is a little bone that is right in the, got like a group of bones in your wrist right here. It is a little bone right in the middle of the group of bones that make up your wrist. And I learned this last night because I'm a Wikipedia fiend. That bone is known as being the bone that absorbs most of the contact when you swing and hit something. So if you're like swinging an axe and you feel a little pain inside, that's the bone that he broke last night. It can be broken, but it is broken through sheer force of contact and repetition. So this is like a baseball injury that can happen. Do not have any updates as far as what he's going to be, where he's going to come back. Brian Snicker, sorry, the manager, I forgot what his name was.
Because of its shape, it's called the hook of hamate.
Yes, I did read that as well. It is apparently a bone that kind of holds the other wrist bones all around it in place, but it is also the one that, because of that, all the contact goes through those bones and channels into that one. So it is a very susceptible bone. By the way,
for those of you at home, this will help you explain where it is. It's right below the triquetrum bone.
Yeah.
Everybody knows where that is.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, doctor. Yeah. He will undergo surgery, although the Braves said Albies is undergoing further testing. Snicker said that usually what they do when they break that bone is to remove it entirely. But we'll find out what goes on with that. And finally, item number 3. There was more baseball. I'm going to get to it later because we are about to start adding some baseball into the show on the weekly as we are inside the last 2 weeks of the season and heading into the playoff. But item number 3 is college football. We got 2 scheduling announcements yesterday.
Mate.
One from the Hey Mate.
Hey mate.
Hey mate. How you doing? Let's throw another shrimp on the barbie. What's up? What's up, buddy? Hey mate.
Hey mate.
How you doing, pal?
Hey mate.
So dumb. This show's so dumb. I'm so dumb. All right. 2 bits of scheduling news out of the ACC and the SEC yesterday. We gave you most of the SECs yesterday. They announced their rivalry matchups moving forward. The SEC, of course, is going to a 9-game conference slate starting next season. You will play 6 opponents. You will play the other opponents, 6 rotating in and out every year. and you will play 3 annual rivalries. South Carolina's annual rivals will be the University of Georgia, the University of Florida, and the University of Kentucky. Now, the SEC did have a way to balance out. They did 2 things. Number one, they wanted to protect historic rivalries. The other thing they wanted to attempt to do is to have these rivalries be kind of balanced, right? So what they did is they took the last 4, I believe it was 4 years of records in conference for each team. They gave you the average record, and then they tried to stack them up. So if one of your historic rivalries has been, like Georgia, one of the best teams in the country for a number of years, then your other team would be somewhere in the middle, like Florida, and your other team would be somewhere in the bottom, like Kentucky. But they did want to protect traditional rivalries. So, like, obviously, Alabama was going to get paired up with Auburn. That's a team that's been kind of in the middle. They also partnered up with Tennessee, who has been closer to the top for the last 3 or 4 years running. So their final team is a team that's been down towards the bottom, Mississippi State. South Carolina gets Georgia, who has obviously been the dominant force in the SEC for a couple of years. So to partner with that, you get Florida, who has been, again, kind of a team in the middle the last couple of years, and your third team is Kentucky towards the bottom of the SEC. Over in the ACC, the ACC's athletic directors agreed yesterday to officially move to a 9-game conference schedule starting next year. They become the 4th of the Power 4 league to go in on a 9-conference game schedule. As part of the new scheduling model, league teams will now be required to play 10 Power 4 games, meaning you have your 9 conference games. You must add 1 more Power 4 or Notre Dame to your schedule starting in 2026. Obviously, multiple ACC teams already have theirs locked in. Some have multiple. For instance, Florida State is at Alabama next year. They also have Florida waiting at the end of the year. Clemson is at LSU next year. They have South Carolina waiting at the end of the year. There are Duke has Illinois at the end of the year. Georgia Tech's at Colorado. North Carolina TCU is a Dublin-Ireland game next year. But remember earlier this week when we were talking about this, and I said, I have a proposal because you can't play a 9-game conference slate with an odd number of teams. Somebody's going to have to be added or somebody's going to have to be removed. Turned out the ACC said, yes, you can. Annually, 1 team will only play 8 conference games and will have to add another Power 4 team to their schedule. Now, whether that team becomes, like they put that in your conference standings, they weren't really super clear about that yesterday, but we will find out about that, I'm sure. It is not formal yet. The athletic directors have signed off on it, meaning it will be formal, but it will still have to go through the ACC's top-tier committee to get the approval. It will. We'll talk more about this coming up later on in the show, what it means for Clemson and the rest of the teams in the ACC. But when we come back here in just a minute, we got to get a little bit more NFL in here. We got that coming up for you. Nick Saban has some comments on Dabo Swinney. We're going to play those and respond to those. And perhaps the most unhinged, random discussion I've ever heard that had me absolutely locked in. That's all coming up on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
Mad World.
All right, guys, quick live coming right back. Stay right there for me, please. And thank you. right, dudes and dudettes, thanks for hanging in there. You're all amazing people. We love you very much. You're great. So in case you missed it, it was item number 3 on the water cooler cheat sheet. The SEC has announced their 3 annual rivalries for each team in the Southeastern Conference. We mentioned South Carolina's will be Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky. The ACC has now agreed to move to a 9-conference game regular season. That one is official. That will start next year. Now, there are some interesting aspects to this. They also approved a mandate that every ACC team must play 10 Power 4 games per year. Obviously, for most schools, and I'll tell you why I use the phrase most schools here in a minute. For most schools, you will play 9 conference games, meaning you add 1 more power game. For teams like Georgia Tech and Clemson and Florida State that already have an annual rivalry with a Power 4 team like Georgia, like South Carolina, and like Florida, they are already set. What I will say is this. I have enjoyed immensely the handful of years where we have started or somewhere in the middle of the season, we have had a Clemson LSU game, a Florida State Alabama game, a Georgia Tech Colorado game, etc. And some of those games may still take place. But considering you now have 9 conference slates, conference game on the slate, my question is, how many of those Florida State, Alabama games will we get moving forward that are not already contractually in place? We have already seen some games get canceled because of the expansion to a 9-game slate across the Power 4 conferences. We saw it was West Virginia and Alabama. They were slated to play a home and home in 2026 and 2027. They went ahead and canceled that. Alabama, because they now have 9 SEC games. Their schedule has already gotten tougher. They also already had, obviously, the 1-1 with Florida State, which started this year in Tallahassee and will be played again next year in Tuscaloosa. So that would have been 9 plus Florida State plus West Virginia. It would have given Alabama effectively 1 cupcake slot on their 12-game schedule. And until we expand to 16, which I also believe will be next year, but until it happens, you can't operate as if it will. It makes sense to me that you would say, we want the ability to throw a tune-up game in there somewhere, whether it's ahead of the Auburn rivalry game or, it's ahead of the Georgia game or whatever. We want the ability to have a tune-up game. And if we're going to play Florida State in the opener in Tuscaloosa, and we've got West Virginia in September, home and away as well, that gives us effectively 1 game to do that. So that I think we're going to start seeing a little bit more of that, which is somewhat disappointing. And I think that will be true in the ACC as well, because whether or not the ACC's upward trajectory, which I do think you are seeing one, whether it will be consistent, whether this conference will be better next year than this year and better the year after that than next year, is obviously we can't prognosticate that. You hope that it does, or at least I hope that it does. I think college football is better when we have more good teams. That is one of the many reasons I have been pro portal and pro NIL as well. But I think you're going to see a lot fewer of these major out-of-conference games that aren't your traditional rivalries. Florida State, Florida's not going anywhere. Clemson, South Carolina, not going anywhere. Georgia, Georgia Tech's not going anywhere. But Alabama, Florida State, are you signing up for that if you're Florida State? If you've got 9 ACC games and Florida, and you have effectively 2 spots on the schedule to fill, don't you want to make sure that you have room for a East Texas A&M in there? A game that you can just go out there and sharpen the knife a little bit before you get into the big game? Don't you want, if you are Clemson, the opportunity to have a Furman or a Wofford or a Coastal thrown in there before you play South Carolina at the end of the year, a game that no matter how good you are and how bad they are or vice versa, is always going to be a fist fight. Of course you do. This is, while I understand let's be real clear. I say, while I understand, as if it's common. I think it is at this point, and it is certainly if you've been a listener to this show for any length of time. Let's be really clear about this. There are two reasons that these conferences are going to 9 conference games. The lesser of the two reasons is that the conferences are so gosh darn big now that the only way to ensure that you have spread out your Team A against Team B is to add another game every year. This is to ensure that you don't have, as you've had in years gone by, a situation where 2 SEC teams, and it's even more accurate with more members in the ACC, a situation where Team A doesn't play Team B for 6 years. There have been plenty of times where kids have been recruited into a school, have played 4 or 5 years at that school, and did not play one particular member of the same conference. This eliminates that. In these conferences now, every school will play every other school at the least every other year, once home and once away. Meaning that if you play all 4 or 5 years of your football at an SEC institution, you will play every other SEC institution once at your place and once at theirs. I think that's fantastic. The primary reason, however, that this move is being made is very simple. It's just like every other decision made in college football. It's money. You're creating inventory here. If you are ESPN and you own the rights to Southeastern Conference football, you want as much Southeastern Conference football as you can get. Because if Alabama was to schedule a game against, well, hell, let's use Georgia Tech for an example. Georgia Tech has a home and home with the Colorado Buffaloes. Once in Boulder, once in Atlanta. When that game is in Atlanta, yes, the rights to that game are owned. A game that, because of A, Dion, and B, the upward trajectory of Georgia Tech, especially considering the boys on game day, like 3 of them picked Georgia Tech to be in the ACC title game this year, which, by the way, who told you to take a ticket out on that? That's right, your boy Rob Brown did. You're welcome. I know, Paul. That game is a lot more intriguing now than it was when they signed that contract. If you're ESPN, ABC, Disney, you want to broadcast that game. But if Georgia Tech is playing over in Boulder, Colorado, as they did to open the year this year, it's Fox that has the rights to that game. Now, it's bigger next year, but what does that mean? If you're Fox and you have the rights to the Big 10 or the Big 12 or whatever, that game next year is a hell of a lot more, especially if Georgia Tech does go to the ACC title game. What if Georgia Tech wins the ACC? Now you got Dion on one side and you're reigning defending of the ACC and a playoff team on the other. Now that game's super hype and you don't have the broadcast rights to that. This allows you to keep as many games as possible in your hopper, in your bracket, in your basket. If you're ESPN, if you're Fox, this allows you to have as many of those games as you can that stays within your broadcasting rights. And while you look and you go, well, Alabama, Florida State is interesting. Sure, it is. But it is less interesting if you are ESPN and you own the rights to SEC football. Now, that's not a bad example because they also own the ACC. But like, pick your cross-conference matchup with 2 different partners that matters here. It is that type of game is less interesting to you if it is on another broadcast outlet that you won't get the ratings for than just having that team play another crappy team in your conference, but at least you get the broadcast rights and the commercial money from that. This decision got made as much for the ACC and the SEC, specifically for money. Now, the last caveat for the ACC thing. We brought up last week, can't play 9 games with an odd number of teams in the conference. So do you invite Notre Dame to be an honorary member? Do you kick out Wake Forest? What are you going to do? The answer is, nope, you do neither of those things. Annually, one ACC team will only play 8 conference games, but will still be required to play 10 Power 4 teams, meaning that you will get years out in advance. This is the year you're the odd man out. You're going to play 8, so you'll need to book 2 Power 4 teams. What that looks like, does that mean that your additional Power 4 game is counted in your conference record? Or are you only going to count 8 games and it's just a matter of how many of those 8 do you win? I don't know how that's going to shape up. We'll see more. It does still have to be formally approved. We will follow that story for you as it develops. I am Rob Brown. He's the Great One Lonzo. When we come back, a lot of criticism about Dabo. He did a radio show last night. He had a couple of quotes, some that were a little contentious. I'm not surprised. We'll talk about that next on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. Yard stock, that is, we got two lawn cares up in the biz today. I like it. That's a great question. Could we see college football's regular season expand in the future? I mean, yes, because it would be a moneymaker, and at the end of the day, that drives the world. I do think that is probably way down the road, and I also do think that it is just as if not more likely that you end up with the concept of the super conferences we've talked about, where there's, the Big Ten is one thing and it does its own thing, and the SEC is one thing and it does its own thing, and whatever the Big 12 and ACC join into is one thing and they do their own thing, and then like maybe we have a cross-conference national championship at the end of the year. Maybe we don't. Maybe the Big Ten and the SEC partner to become college football and everybody else is left out. I don't know. There's a lot TBD. Be right back. All right, amigos, we're back. Thanks for hanging in there. At the end of the day, it does make the world go round for most people. Shane, that is correct. Shane Barrett, newsbreaker. All right, a couple of bits of information very quickly about this ACC scheduling that have dropped by Ross Dellinger, Andrea Adelson, and others. Dellinger said in a tweet after the approval of the 9-game slate, quote, "This has been the expectation since the SEC voted to move to 9 games last month, as we reported then. ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips led the move to 9 conference games despite some schools, namely Clemson and Florida State, pushing back against it." Listen, I'm unsurprised by that. I'm unsurprised that the folks who didn't want this to happen, similar to the SEC and Big Ten, I am sure, were the crown jewel teams. Why? Because those teams can sign those big time, big profit home and aways with other schools. Like those are teams that probably get asked quite a few times, do you want to play a home and away with us? That's a money-making opportunity for those schools by switching to 9. And Dabo had some comments during his appearance last night that we'll address here in just a moment. He pointed out that he did not like the move to 10 Power 4 games, to 9 conference games, because it makes him feel like he needs to have not 10, but 11 Power 4 games. We'll get to that coming up here in just a little while. We also found out from Andrea Adelson that the ACC is moving to 9 conference games, but it will not start next season. It will start in 2027 with 16 teams playing a 9+1 model and 1 playing an 8+2. Then Mike Barber, who is the editor-in-chief at Seville right now and also writes for the AP, he added on that, quote, "I'm told the ACC office does not want Notre Dame games to count in conference standings, nor does it like ACC teams playing each other in non-conference games. It believes those scenarios muddy the conference standings," quote, end quote, via his tweet. He went on to say, that was what he said yesterday after the news broke. So just a couple of add-ons there. The 9 conference game slate for the ACC will not start next year. It will start in 2027. There was pushback from Clemson, Florida State, and at least one other school, though they were not named. My bet would be Miami, but I also feel like if it was Miami, that probably would have got thrown into the mix there as well. But we will find out more, I'm sure, and that the conference does not want Notre Dame games, and obviously this impacts Clemson more than anybody else, does not want Notre Dame games to count towards the conference standings at the end of the year, which makes sense because of the whole they're not in the conference thing. It's a strategic partnership, but with them not being in the conference and being, whether you agree with this sentiment or not, an annual powerhouse, that would make sense. The ACC doesn't want to count those games. So we'll see how that plays out. All right. Dabo did his radio show last night. Now, I don't have the audio from it, but what I do have is John Blau of the Post and Courier, who on his Twitter account was quoting Dabo in real time and giving his reaction to some of the stuff. And obviously with Clemson on the bye this week, we'll have John back on Monday, and we will ask him about some of the statements given by Dabo Swinney yesterday. Here is some of what Dabo said yesterday. Asked about the loss to Syracuse, Dabo responded by saying, "We just can't seem to play complementary football, can't put it all together right now." But he did go on to say that Clemson has, quote, "a great group of young men. I'm really proud of these guys, how they hung in there." Asked about Clemson's 1-3 start and his reaction, he said, quote, "It caught us by surprise, but I don't think it caught God by surprise." He says his players will grow from this. Quote, "I don't know God's big picture plan, but he'll use this for good. I don't have any doubt about that." This is where there's going to be a bit of contention, because I do not judge anybody for having their faith be an overwhelming part of their life that impacts and has a lens placed over any aspect of their life. What I do not appreciate is when people use it as a shield against performance for a job that they are getting paid $11 million to do specifically. I don't like, because what you're effectively doing here is creating a spot where if I question you any further, I look like a butthole, right? Like you're creating this paradigm where if I come in here and say the job's not being done well enough, the job's not being performed up to par, you're not living up to your end of an $11 million contract that you are getting paid to live up to, and then you drop that quote, like it makes me look like the bad guy. And I'm not. And anyone questioning this team and where they are after a 1-3 start, that is more than fair. So I don't know if that's what he intended to do here, and I doubt that it is. But it feels uncomfortable in that spot. Now, if you want to say that you believe that this is a test to be put in front of these young men to make them better soldiers in the future, whatever, like, okay, that's fine. But to use it at when somebody says, what's your response to a 1-3 start? And to immediately hit with I don't think it caught God by surprise. Like, man, okay, if you believe that it is part of some infinite plan, cool. I respect that. But at the same time, you're not doing your job well enough. Like, you're just not. It doesn't change anything. My comments and complaints are going to be the exact same as they were yesterday morning, as they were Saturday night. Like, I don't know. This felt like a weird spot for you to bring up religion. We're talking about football. And I understand that, again, for a man like Dabo, and I respect this about him, that is the umbrella that covers every inch and every moment of his life. I have no issues with that. But when people are saying, hey, we are expecting X out of you, and you're getting paid a lot of money to provide that. And it's not that you lost the game. Like, fine, football's going to happen. It's the fact that the criticisms of this team, and you heard it in some of the questions that got asked last night, not from callers because they don't do that anymore, but from some of the submitted questions and all that. One of the things that people are questioning right now is the heart of this team, the mentality of this team.
I do understand where you're coming from your standpoint, but he's not doing it in a place where he could have gotten immediate reaction because he's not taking phone calls. If he was doing this in a press conference, then he's making religion his shield and he's hiding behind it. But in this case, he's just doing his radio show with no phone calls. I don't know if they take texts or comments from other places, but he's doing it in a place where it's not immediately something that get reaction.
That is almost, respectfully, that's almost worse to me, right? Like that's almost worse to me because, and I'll keep it a buck with you. I don't often listen to coaches' radio shows because they are a propaganda extravaganza, and especially now with most of, it's not just Dabo, for the record, most of these coaches' shows do not take direct interaction with fans. And I get it, because as somebody who's been in this game for a long time, and as somebody who has hosted, not on that level, but has hosted even at like high school. I used to host back in Florida, I used to host a high school football team's coaches' shows. It was a huge high school in Pensacola, and I used to host their coaches' show. And we would go to like a Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever, and you'd be shocked. There'd be like 300-400 people that would show up to hear the coach of this high school talk. And I very much remember we did the first couple of years that I did this, we did a kind of an open mic session, right? Like we were live, but we did kind of open mic where we had a microphone out in the crowd, and we had one of our producers would run out there, and a fan would raise, and we'd put the mic in front of him and let him ask a question. And obviously we broadcast it on a delay because you never know, but like,
and it's also the law.
But we would have that mic, and if they said something out of pocket, like the producer would rip the mic away and we just move on. But after that school put together 2 back-to-back very disappointing years for the talent level they had, the school came to me and was like, "Hey, we're not gonna do that anymore. Like, we're not gonna take live fan interaction," because the fans were beating up on the coach. And again, understandably so. That coach was getting paid for a high school level pretty good money and had good talent, and they were just losing games because it didn't feel like the team was checked in. And I kind of think it's the same spot here. So to go to that line of thought And again, I get that it is the self-admittedly most important thing about Dabo and to Dabo is his faith. I understand that. I have zero problem or judgment of that at all. And if that is the place that you want to find your comfort and your respite in what is a tough moment, absolutely. I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, this is work. This is your job. And you're getting paid a lot of money to do it. And again, 1-3 wouldn't even be the end of the world if it was 1-3, but like you clearly got beat by good football teams who just outplayed you. But when it looks like, and the question from Clemson fans, and I think as somebody who has interactions with them daily on this show, and I would even say daily in my regular personal life with friends out in public, or even when some of you guys that are listeners come up and say hi, feel free to do that anytime you see me. The problem is what's being questioned right now is discipline and heart. What is being questioned right now is things that are within your scope of control. And so to say that we're coming up short in aspects of the game that are within your control, that just aren't good enough, to grab a microphone and say, oh, well, it's all part of a bigger plan, can't control it. Well, then why are we paying you $11 million a year, right? Like if you are making the argument that the results are out of your control, that the results are up to the higher being, fine, but why are we paying you $11 million a year? If the outcomes are dictated by a higher power, why are you making that much money? Like that, right? Like, I don't think that's unfair. I don't think that's kicking anybody. I don't think that that's rattling a branch here. I think it's a fair take. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. If you want to say, hey, I'm taking faith, I'm leaning on my faith for respite and for cool and calm, and I'm using that to course correct and fix where we are, fine. But at the same time, you have an element of responsibility to answer for the results of the job that you're getting paid a metric buttload of money to do. And this almost feels like a deflection to some degree. Like and not just a deflection, but it is a deflection that creates a world where my questioning it is going to inherently make me come across as a bad person to a lot of you. And I promise you it's not intended to. I have never brought this up about Dabo Swinney or anybody else. And I wouldn't, because it's not necessary. But when you utilize it as the shield from criticism for failing at your job, and again, not failing because he's losing, but failing because the team looks undisciplined, undeveloped, and without heart, then I have to criticize it. And I almost have to ask the question, are you doing this because you genuinely feel that way, in which case I would have a question, or are you doing this to deflect from criticism so that some people in my job, and I know that there are some people in my position would go, yeah, I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that. And now we're not going to ask the tough questions because now it looks like you're attacking Dabo's faith. I'm not. I'm attacking his job performance. I'm attacking the performance of the football team. The performance of the football team is not up to par. Best is not the standard right now. I am not attacking Dabo's beliefs or his faith or anything like that at all. What I'm saying is to use your belief in your faith as a shield to deflect from criticism of you not doing a job that a lot of people invest a lot of money for you to get paid a lot of money to do. That's unfair. And it makes it seem, if nothing else, it makes it seem like you don't have answers. That's what this feels like to me, like you don't have an answer. And if you don't have an answer, then maybe you aren't the right guy in the right job anymore. That's not a call for his job, just to be clear. But if you don't have answers after this many weeks of football, after 4 weeks of ball, of looking the same 4 weeks in a row, if you don't have answers, then I would say no matter what you've done, you're not the right guy for the job. But this feels like an effort to not be asked questions because, oh, you're attacking his faith. No, I'm not. I'm attacking the football team and the performance of the head coach, and that is my job and very fair. We'll get to some more of the quotes coming up later on in the show. We got your audio blitz coming up, all of that after a man who would win every national championship and never displays a lack of heart while doing it. Lonzo with a sports flash.
Wow. Thanks.
And
Detroit,
that's how you started?
I'm overwhelmed. The Detroit Lions improved to 2-1 with a 38-30 win over the Ravens on Monday night. Baltimore had the ball down a field goal with minutes to play, but Derrick Henry's third fumble in 3 games allowed Detroit to pad the lead. David Montgomery's starred for the Lions, rushing for 151 yards and a pair of touchdowns, and Jahmyr Gibbs added 2 more on the ground. The Atlanta Braves were eliminated from playoffs last weekend, but have been white hot down the stretch, winning 9 consecutive games with last night's 11-5 win over the Nationals. Atlanta had 14 hits, including a Ronald Acuna Jr. home run. The ACC fined Syracuse $25,000 and issued a public reprimand for faking injuries during the 34-21 win over Clemson last weekend. The conference said in the fourth quarter, 2 players faked an injury with encouragement from a coach to gain an advantage. That is bad.
From the News Talk 98.9 WORD Traffic Center, I'm Bill Brooks on the Fan upstate.
Hey, sports fans, I'm Mark Drummond, owner of Garage Stores Today. That's right, Garage Stores Today. We proudly serve Greenville, Greer, Spartanburg, and the surrounding counties with fast, reliable, and honest garage store service. Tired of companies showing up late or not at all? Not here.
after. The Rob Brown Show is back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate, Rob Brown, the Great Malonzo, and you. Be a part of the radio program. The phone line's open, 844-326-3663, 844-FANFONE is the number you can call the show. You can text the show. We'd love you to be a part of the show. If you have any thoughts on that last segment, listen, I am firmly aware that can be a very tough conversation to have when you start getting into a spot where sports and a deep held belief, and I'm not just talking about religion, but I'm talking obviously about politics or about social justice or any message at all where a player, a coach, an athlete has a deeply held belief, especially if it is one that you don't necessarily share. I go back to Colin Kaepernick, obviously, as an example of that. Then this can be a tough conversation to have. But I do not think that this is a conversation about he should or should not share that message. I have no problem with Dabo Swinney sharing the message of his faith and his belief. Zero at all. If I did, obviously, I'd have been having a problem with Dabo Swinney for like his whole career. I won't, I never have. Where I do have a problem is when you start utilizing it as a defense of yourself. When you, to use a term that I don't know if this is fair here or not, but I will use it because it's the best I can come up with. When you, to some degree, weaponize that belief or philosophy, that's where it becomes a problem. I guess maybe not weaponized, but whatever the word would be for to use it as a deflection device, as a shield. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I mean. You can look at it that way.
Yeah.
I don't think he's using it. I don't think a shield is not a weapon unless you're a really large man and really skilled, I guess.
I mean, Captain America uses his as well.
All right. You've got a good point there.
Right off the gate, right off the rip.
Wow. But
I don't know that I could come up with another one. Taskmaster, but that doesn't really count.
Dabo is not Captain America, though.
So the point here is, I have never and would never have a problem with any person of any faith making that a primary point of their life. I've never had an issue with it. I wouldn't have an issue with it. Where I do have an issue with it is when someone begins to use it as a defense mechanism away from criticism of performance in a job that they have a lot of people investing a lot of money in. And I feel to some degree like that is what has happened here. Like that was a way to deflect from criticism about where the program is, and more importantly, where it is versus where it's expected to be. And if that is an uncomfortable thought, allow us to do a thought experiment. What if it was replaced by any other deeply held belief? What if instead of a message of faith, what if Dabo Swinney was a vegan? And what if the team was losses to teams that they are clearly better than on paper, with an offense that can't get going, with a defense that was supposed to be the heart and soul of the team, but just certainly against Syracuse wasn't good enough? What if Dabo got up there after a 1-3 start? And hey, you're 1-3. You're a lot of questions about the effort of the program. Where are you? And Dabo Swinney said, well, I've been thinking a lot about those poor defenseless farm creatures out there that are just being slaughtered every day so that people can eat meat. This weighs very heavily on me. And unfortunately, at a point in time where I know that the right thing for me to do is to spread the message that we as humanity should stop eating meat because we are causing pain and suffering on these poor animals around the globe that is needless. And I just want to spread that. If he used that as a shield, you'd all go, that's not good enough, dude. It's not good enough.
So you just equated veganism to a religion.
No, I did not. You didn't listen to what I said. What I said was not compare it. I said, instead of it being about its faith, What if he used a different belief? And I just use that one because it's the most crazy one I could come up with.
I don't know if that works, but it is the most crazy thing that you could think of. Yes.
What if it was any other belief? What if LeBron went out and averaged 4 a game and he came out and said the reason is he's it's not really up to me. It's about social justice out there. I'm so locked in on that right now. Even Rob Brown, the woke warrior, would go, no, bro, that's not it. That's not it. I'm not saying to, just like I did with LeBron and with Kaepernick and everybody else, zero problem with you having that belief. Zero problem with you standing on business on that belief. Zero problem. I am anti shut up and dribble. I think every player, no matter where you stand on whatever belief spectrum we're talking about, has the right to make it a part of who they are outwardly. But I also think every coach, an athlete, and everyone involved with a program or a franchise that has a lot of people heavily invested in it, time, energy, effort, and money. The 4 things that you invest into anything you invest in: time, energy, effort, and money. If you have people that invest time, energy, effort, and money into a thing, and you don't meet expectations, just expectations. I'm not saying you needed to be 4-0 through this spot. I'm just saying meet expectations. Are you busting your hump? Are you executing well? Are you play calling well, et cetera, et cetera? Then I would say, okay, yeah, like talk the talk. I don't care if Colin Kaepernick takes a knee or LeBron James puts Black Lives Matter on his shirt. Just like I don't care if Dabo Swinney wants to read a Bible verse in his press conference. I don't care. That's fine. That's you. You do your thing. But when you begin to utilize it, anything, as a defense of a lack of meeting expectations, that's where the problem starts to pop up. That's where I start to have an issue with it. And it doesn't matter if it's your religion or your politics or your stance on social justice or if you think pigs are pets, not food. I don't care what your stance is. If you use it as a shield from criticism of not living up to the expectations of a job and a role that you are paid a lot of money from a lot of people to do, that's where I have a problem with it. That's where I have an issue.
Pigs are pets, not food.
Oh,
I mean, you're throwing some stuff in there. I don't know where that stuff is coming from.
Well, there's the old Finding Nemo, fish are friends, not food.
Oh, okay.
But then I just substituted to roll with the vegan thing because
no, you just went with with pigs because of where we live.
No, also because like pigs are
and you're also talking about Clemson, which is an ag school, so pigs works in really
no,
well
I'd have
with
done
what
cows if I want to do that. Well, you're the one that came up with the mew and meow offense.
Yeah, well, no,
not me.
No, you said it in a way that made me think of that. But so pigs are not a part of an ag school. I think they are.
I mean, I'm sure that they are.
I think it's all because are pigs livestock?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, then
I mean, unless you're a vegan, and then no. But
then they're pets and they live in your home.
I have a dear friend back in Florida who has a pig for it, just like a pet, just like a dog has a pig. And I'm gonna tell you right now, this pig is the smartest pet of any of my friends' pets. This pig knows come, sit, stay, like knows all the dog commands and flawlessly executes them. It's incredible. Like it's unbelievable. Goes out to the bathroom in the yard. Like it's unbelievable. Ask to go outside. She has a little bell on the door. And the pig, when the pig needs to go out, rings the bell to ask to go. It's unbelievable.
What does she do when she smells bacon?
I don't know if they actually eat bacon in the house. That feels like it'd be kind of wrong.
But that doesn't mean it's not done. I'm just curious. By the way, I agree with Spike. Pork is delicious. It's the other white meat.
Spike jumps in the chat, says, I don't think Dabo wants to talk about what's wrong with his team. And if I were him, I wouldn't want to talk about it either. And listen, I heard, in fact, I'm going to play the audio coming up here in a little while from College Game Day where they were having a very in-depth discussion about Clemson that started off with Nick Saban. And I want to play you the comments. It's got Nick, Dez, and Herbstreit all on it, all kind of giving their opinion on what has happened. This was all before the Syracuse game, so I think it rings even more true now. But
can't wait to hear Herbstreit defending his boy in his school.
He doesn't really.
Wow.
So we're going to get to that. But the point here,
it really is over for Dabo then, isn't it?
The point here is there's been a lot of conversation about the portal and NIL, and I do think that is important. I think anyone dismissing that as important is dismissing something that is very important. but I think there's more to it than that. And I think Spike's probably onto something, because the one thing that you don't want to do, because Dabo had a lot more motivational speaker quotes. Quote, even the people that like to criticize everybody, but not everybody gets back up. It was awesome to see these guys get back up today and set their eyes on what they want to do. This is a reset week for all of us. We're kind of looking at, is it a new season with a new opener, and see if we can begin more intelligently. Like a lot of motivational talk. And that's all well and good. Like, fine, you should be a motivator. As a head coach, your job is to motivate. Different people motivate in different ways. But your job at the end of the day is to find the one that resonates with your team and make it work. But again, like, people want to know what is happening and why it's gone off the rails. And you're not answering the question. I think that's the take. I appreciate that take from Spike. Kane says, football is very data-driven with input and output results. There is always a cause as to why X didn't happen. To say God will bring us back up is the same as saying we'll get lucky next time.
All right. I believe he's talking about spiritually and about, just as people, we're going to be okay. I don't think it has to do with that.
Say that.
With the other thing. And so you would rather him say, here's the reason why we're losing, because our coaches aren't coaching the way they're supposed to coach. Cade is not playing to the level that he should be playing.
Yes.
Our run defense is horrible. I don't know why this linebacker can't tackle. So you want him to throw his entire
football
team
stuff.
under
just talk
the
to me
Roy
about
bus.
football. You cannot even crack on an individual player. You can say, we're having this issue. We're not tackling well enough. The passing game isn't where we want it to be. And there's how we're addressing it. Fine. That's all well and good. And even if you want to express your faith, which I know Dabo does, and I don't have any issue with it, never have. Guys have been here 5 years. This is the first time it's come up. That's for a reason. I have no issue with it. But there is a difference between saying, here's all the football things that are wrong that I as a head coach and we as a team need to work on. And also, I believe that we as a locker room will be fine because of our faith and our reliance on God. And fine. Cool. I'm good with that. I wouldn't even brought this up today. Or if I did, it would be from a football perspective. But he didn't do that. All he did was say, I don't know why we're 1-3. It caught us by surprise, but not God. He knows. So football games
or he's using psychology against people like you, to where you're talking about this and you're not talking about the actual problems with the team. Because you spent or the second segment talking about that, but not talking about what's actually wrong with the team.
Right, but we did that yesterday.
I
Half
know,
the show yesterday was that.
I know, but that doesn't mean he doesn't continue to say things that he knows using psychology will cause people to look away from the actual problems.
Let me ask you this then. Then, if that is what you think he is doing here, then as a Christian, do you have a problem with him using that as a shield?
I said that's a possibility. I don't think that's what he's doing.
Okay.
But he could be doing that.
Okay. If that is a possibility, we would address it as a possibility. But if it's a possibility, it means it's not definitely what he's doing. And if it's not definitely what he's doing, the only other thing I can come up with is he's doing what I think he's doing. Like this does feel like it's an X or it's a Y scenario.
It was on his radio show. If it was out.
Quick question.
Who
listens to Dabo's radio show? Who is he talking the most directly he can talk to directly to?
His fans.
Correct. So if there is one place that I would expect you to talk a little bit about football and to talk about what the problems are and how we're addressing them and what we're going to do to move forward. If there is one place to do that, it's on your radio show when you are going directly to the fans. There's no middleman here, right? Like, it's one thing if he talks at a press conference and there's a gaggle of reporters and then that goes out and then you go, okay, maybe this got twisted and this reporter has this agenda and blah, 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 blah. That would even be more understandable. But you're on your radio show talking directly, as short of holding an open town hall in the stadium and inviting people to fill up and just one-on-one town hall it. This is the most directly you communicate with your fans. And even to them, you're not answering the questions. You're using a shield here, and I don't love it.
All right. Again, so what do you want him to do? What should Clemson fans be wanting him to address during these radio shows?
Why is Cade Klubnik not developed? Why is your wide receivers never seem to be in a position with the exception of Antonio Williams? Why is your defense that was supposed to be the best front seven in all of football giving up that many points to Syracuse? Why does your play calling continue to be the same bad, questionable play calling that it has been for a while? Why does your offensive line not giving Cade time to sit in the pocket, making him trigger shy and cueing him to look like there's a lack of development? Why are your defensive backs getting cooked by Syracuse wide receivers? There's 6 off the top of my head. And it doesn't attack a single individual player.
And you also
top of my head.
You also do this for a living of all over the place.
I am not asking to ask questions. I'm saying here's what, when somebody says, Dabo, you're 1-3, what's your reaction and what's going wrong and how do you fix it? There's 6 he can address. And instead, that's not what you got. There's a difference. There's a difference. Now, here's the other thought. Spike added one more thought. I don't care what he's saying in public if he's working on the problems at practice. I have 2 issues with that. Spike. Issue number 1 for me is I do care what he says in public. Not because of me, but because of y'all. It's kind of like a big company. You are, let's put it in business terms, you are, if you are a Clemson fan, an investor. You are an investor. You invest in this team. Maybe it is not money, though for many of you, it is money. You take your hard-earned money or your time, your energy, your effort, your passion, whatever is your most important and valuable resource, and you invest it into a program. And I would assume that you would expect some level of return on that investment. Well, if you're not getting a return on investment, the chairman of the company would need to come out and say, here's what's going wrong. And even if he comes out and goes, well, actually, it's market fluctuations, or it's tariffs, or it's a lack of supply of resources we need to build or make the product and or good and or service, whatever. But could you imagine if you invested $100,000 in a company, the profit tanked, and the chairman came out and said, don't worry about it, guys. God's going to make it okay. You'd be like, cool, but how are you enacting that plan, right? How are you doing what you can to help us get there? It's the same thing to me. It's the same thing. The second part is, if you're not answering any questions in public, how am I supposed to have belief? Especially when we've seen it 4 weeks in a row now. 4 weeks. It's been the issue. If you're not answering questions in public, in what world do I have a reason to believe that you are answering them in private? Because you told me you had a great team meeting? That doesn't do anything for me. Everybody was really ramped up at the meeting today. Okay, what did they say? What did they say that makes me believe that? If you're not answering questions in public, in what world do I believe that you have the answers in private? I don't. I can't. All right, we'll get away from this. We'll do a little audio blitz coming up here in a few minutes. We'll listen to that Nick Saban audio as well. The Rob Brown Show rolls on after this. It is the Fan Upstate.
QC.
All right, guys, one more live and we're back. Stay right there for me, please, and thank you. whatever. That answer caught fans by surprise because we expect answers from the head coach. Yeah, I think that's primarily where I'm coming from. Zero with the issue with the discussion. Zero issue with the discussion about where he is finding his respite and solace. None at all. Problem when you owe people, to me, I think, some of you may disagree with this. Maybe this is the subjective part of it. I think you owe people who are invested and bought in answers. And I think that's kind of a way to get out of providing them and creating a world where it's hard to criticize. Because I'll tell you, like, I knew I was doing this segment today, but I spent a lot of time thinking about, all right, how do I prepare this in a way that people understand that I'm not questioning that. I'm questioning the team and the job performance of the head coach. And that is my job and fair. Spike has been kind enough to call the show. He wants to chat about it. Spike, welcome to the show, big fella. How we doing?
I'm doing okay, Brother Rob.
Good.
Okay, I'm just guessing here because I'm not, I think I know ball, but I'm not an expert. My guess is, Dabo is waking up and realizing that he's had a view of how college football works and how to win at it. And he's in 2025, and that's not happening anymore. And that's why you get to the end of the Syracuse game and the alma mater's playing, and he's standing there crying because, every coach has something they're good at. And Dabo especially has always been getting the recruits. I mean, he got noticed. He got hired as head coach because he was the guy that went and got C.J. Spiller out of Florida when everybody told him he couldn't recruit down there. And he's always been the team's best recruiter. And his philosophy was, we get the best players, we recruit them, we bring them in, we line them up against our opponents, and we turn them loose, and we're going to win. And that's not college football in 2025. That there's now stuff that Dabo needs to win that he doesn't know how to do. And, I'm Dabo's age, and when you get to a certain age and you realize that everything you know is not going to be enough to let you succeed at your job, that scares the hell out of you. I think that's why we get Garrett Riley. Garrett Riley is there, and people talk about this at the time because he's got an offense that succeeded when you didn't always have the best players. And I had thought at the time, well, this is reality. Dabo's realizing he just can't line up a hat on a hat and expect to win every time. He's got to do something more. I can understand if Dabo's wanting Jesus to take the wheel here. I completely understand him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's fair. And especially considering, and actually I'm going to play probably in the final hour of the show, the clip that Saban had about it, because I've held the belief since Saban walked away. Saban didn't walk away because he was done coaching. He didn't walk away because he was done winning, because he didn't enjoy whatever. I think he walked away because he looked around and he said, with the transfer portal and with NIL and now with player retention being more difficult than it's ever been before, et cetera, that's all the stuff that I don't even want to do anymore. It's not that he couldn't have. It's just that he didn't want to. I also think for a lot of people, and I'm watching it happen, Spike, in this industry, my industry, to make it about me, as I usually do, I am watching people who have been in this game for a very long time start to either panic or take themselves out, because it is no longer just about watch a bunch of football, crack a mic, do 3 or 4 good hours, and then watch a bunch of football. Now it's social media, and it's in-person marketing, and it's understanding trends, and it's all these different things that if you didn't grow up with them, they can be maybe kind of hard to pin down and understand. And I'm sure that in, another 20 years, when I'm sitting on 60, there will be the next generation of whatever changes happen in this industry. And I'll go, yeah, I can't keep up anymore. Like, I can't keep up. I did 40 years in this industry, and now it's completely different. I'm past that point. But I think at the same time, like, Dabo ain't old. He's 55, right? Like, he's not old. I just think that the aspects of the game that he is uninterested in are just as important as the aspects he is interested in. And instead of being like Nick and going, yeah, I don't want to do all that, so I'm out, I think he's thinking like, I'll just keep doing the things I'm good at better than everybody else, and that's enough. And the reality, Spike, is not anymore. It's not. The only issue I have, and I don't have an issue with any of that. The only issue I had is there is some level of, for me, expectation to have a conversation with the fans, aka investors, about why we are where we are, and how we're going to fix why we are where we are. And this just felt like a way to not have that tough conversation.
I agree with that, but I also think Dabo. I also think if you're Dabo and you're being honest, saying that hey, I don't know what the heck we're doing out here. I don't know how to fix it is not going to be a good enough answer.
Oh, I agree with that, Spike. I appreciate the phone call, big dog. Good to talk to you. Yeah, no, I agree. Like if Dabo grabbed the mic and went, "I'll be honest with you guys. I don't know what's wrong. We thought we had it all figured out. We thought we nailed it. We haven't done anything different than we were doing back in 2016, 2018, 2020. Like we don't know what's wrong." Yeah, I think that's going to be a panic too, because the expectation is if you're making $11 million a year, you have the knowledge, the wisdom, the insight to be able to address these problems and say, here's what's wrong. Here's the thoughts. Maybe you don't have to go into like explicit detail of we're changing this and we're going to run more of this and less of that or whatever. But like, tell us, what the problems are, and tell us, even if it's not easy, the solution and how to get there. And then we'll see what happens. But you didn't do that. It's just a bunch of, as I've used this word many times, it's just a bunch of platitudes. And if your platitudes are getting you to 11-1, 12-0 in national championships, be chief platitude. Nobody's going to question that when you are successful. But the expectations weren't 1-3 for the first time since 2014. So yes, people expect more than my faith has got us here. We'll see. All right, let's get away from this. Unless you guys want to keep going, 844-326-3663. We got some NFL. I got your audio blitz coming up and more. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate.
Good luck with that, Spike. I completely understand when a new program rolls around here like every other week.
I was going to say.
Yeah, and it's like I believe I will lose my job either when I say something really stupid that ticks someone off or because I can't keep up with the technology. And there's been a couple times where I'm like, man, I just do not get this. But I know a couple people who do and can explain it in a way to get me there. So, namely Chris, if I can't understand it, he can usually make me understand. But eventually they're going to say, okay, in order to produce a show, you've got to install this in your eyeball. At which time I'm going to go, yeah, I think I'm done.
Well, those getting shipped.
Yep, not happening.
right, dudes and dudettes. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you.
He is that bro that you go, let's see if we can get him to do this.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll do it successfully.
Sup, bro?
Chilling. Hey, mate. Great to have you here on the show. Hope you are well. Rob Brown, the Great Malonzo, and you. So, 2 clips real quick that I would like to play for you. And then, next hour, Dabo free. All right? Dabo free hour in the next hour. But I do have 2 clips for you here, and then we will move on. I will start with this one. I want to be abundantly clear. The criticisms being levied on Dabo Swinney, and I can only speak for me, but the criticisms being levied right now of Dabo Swinney are only at Dabo Swinney, the head coach of the Clemson Tigers, not Dabo Swinney, the guy, the dude, the person, not the man, the football coach. And there is a difference there. I do think we have, unfortunately, created a world where it is increasingly difficult to criticize someone without it being labeled as a personal attack. I promise you, it is not. In fact, I saw a clip yesterday that I wanted to play for people who think it is. This is Jordan Travis, former quarterback for the Florida State Seminoles. You'll remember him. He was in charge of the 23 team, went undefeated, won the ACC title that year, got left out of the playoffs. And the reason that was stated, it's not the reason, but the reason that was stated that they got left out of the playoffs was because, their starting quarterback got injured. That was Jordan Travis. And without Jordan Travis, they're not one of the best 4 teams. So they didn't get a chance to prove that they were, which, again, to this day is bunk. Jordan Travis knows that. And I think he knew that at the time. And I think one of the reasons that Jordan Travis kind of never really was the same cat, aside from the fact that his leg got snapped in half, was I got to assume that there was a bit of a mental block placed on that guy. But he was doing a podcast a couple of days ago. 2 Travis, 1 Take, I believe is what it was called. And he said this about Dabo Swinney.
Talking about Dabo, I mean, that guy is special. He's a great coach, but he's a great person. I mean, I remember sitting in my hospital bed that night on November 18th, and one of the first people that called me when I was laying in the bed was, I see like a random number pop up, and I see maybe Dabo Swinney, and I'm like, no way. So I pick up the phone, and he's like, hey, man, I just want to call and just let you know I'm praying for you. And we sat on the phone. He said a prayer. It was a quick little call, but I mean, he didn't have my number. He took initiative to go out of his way to get my number, just to call me, just to say a prayer for me. It just speaks volumes to the man he is. Whenever Dabo's
that's why you won't let me say, like,
never
put any bad words on. Okay.
Yeah. And that's the guy. That's the guy. And that is the guy that I have not and will not criticize. In fact, quite the opposite. When I am on other shows or when I am talking to football people away from the radio and they start having Dabo cracks, I will defend the guy. That is different than taking issue with the football coach. The capacity I am talking about is a football coach. Now, one of the other conversations that has been going on for a while is Dabo and whether or not he refuses to adapt to modern era college football. I saw a conversation taking place between Cole Bryson and a couple of listeners on Twitter the other day where he said, we can talk about the portal and we can talk about NIL, and it is a factor. But at the end of the day, you went out there to play a Syracuse team that you have better players than. Just about everywhere on the football field, you have better players than them. You got out-coached. And I agree with that. But I also say that not or that the portal and NIL are not a part of the issue is also factually incorrect. It is a part of the issue. It may not be the primary part of the issue, but it is a part of the issue.
If you believe that coaching is the reason why they're not doing that well, it won't matter if they bring in more players from the portal because the coaching is not going to change.
I agree.
The coaching is going to be the same. So if the coaching is the problem, if it is the coordinators, or if Dabo himself, or if it's the program overall, you can have the best players and still have the problem you're having now.
I totally agree. I do think there is some level of just being able to line up, put hat on hat, and out-athlete somebody, but I also agree with what you just said, especially if I talked about my 4 pillars of coaching yesterday, one of which is player development. If guys aren't being developed, and especially if you're talking about transfer portal players that like have NIL desires, maybe they want to move, or excuse me, NFL desires, they want to move up a school. Well, if they look and they go, players aren't getting better at Clemson, then you become less of a portal destination to them, right? So like it all ties in together. Well, I would like to very quickly play you a couple of clips here. Well, play you one long clip here. This is a game day conversation that was a college game day conversation that was taking place Saturday before the Clemson-Syracuse game. This is a conversation that was taking place between Nick Saban, Desmond Howard, and Kirk Herbstreit. They all had takes on everything happening in the program. Now, it's kind of a long clip, so I'm not going to play all of it. We will address some of it here before we take a break, but I do want you to hear what the game day guys were saying, and we will address it as it happens.
He created the success, very similar to the way we created a standard and an expectation in Alabama, but then you got to keep climbing that mountain because people expect you to live up to it. And you're only as good as your last play. You're only as good as your last game. When you're in competition and you got to look at the next challenge as an opportunity to continue to grow and develop. And, you know, Dabo needs to look at what he needs to do in his program to make his program continually be successful. Do you have to change the portal? Do you have to change name, image, and likeness? The game has changed. You need to change with it. Otherwise, you're not going to put yourself in the same position other people are and having a chance to be successful.
Yeah. All right, so that's Nick Saban saying that, right? And that's a lot of what I said last week after the Tech loss and yesterday after the Cuse loss. It's a couple of things. One of the biggest issues I took out of Dabo's press conference last week was not that he seemed contentious. Of course he did. His team was 1-2 with a couple of losses you're not super thrilled about. It was one line within it where he said, why are we held to a different standard than all of these other teams? My man, you're the one that hung a 40-foot banner on the wall that said best is the standard. You have a banner hung over your practice field that these players see every day that asks, demands, claims that you are at a different standard than everybody else. That's why. So I think what Nick said here is precisely accurate, right? Like we do this with athletes all the time. Quarterback could be out there cooking with grease, but then he goes out there and he has a 12 of 32 day for 100 yards. And what do? We blow the guy up on Monday. It's the same thing. It's just instead of one game to one game, it's season to season. The problem is you've now had a few questionable seasons that aren't best and therefore aren't the standard. That's it. Here's what Dez had to say.
Dabo seems resistant to that change, and that's what people are starting to try to come at him because he wants to do things his way. I have a lot of confidence, respect for Dabo and the way he goes about his business, but obviously he set a particular standard there in Clemson. That's what his fans are used to, and they haven't reached that point so far this season. The most disappointing thing is that most coaches always tell their players, don't pay attention to the media. Don't pay attention to social media. When he answered that question, he answered to get something off his chest. The question was, and I don't know if you guys are aware of it, the question was, what's the one offensive play you would like to have back in the Georgia Tech game? And then he gave that 13-minute rant about if I'm not good enough, they want to send me away. So he obviously has something he wanted to get off his chest because he's paying too much attention to the media.
Or is he sending a message to his team through the media?
Always.
He may be sending
I mean, that's a good spin.
And to the fans.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's what
I think first.
There's what Des had to say. We'll get to Kirk here in a second, because that's a theory I've seen floated a couple of times too, right? Like maybe this is Dabo trying to take the heat off the players a little bit, or to send a message to the players a little bit. But respectfully, the press conference last week was a lot of me. So I don't think it was sending a message to the players. Now I could get behind, I can understand the put all the lenses on me so that they're not on my guys, so my guys can dial in on playing football. I can understand that being a reality. But that's not what I took out of the radio show yesterday. And even if that is the case, put it on you, but answer. Here's what Kirk said.
And to the fans.
I think, first of all, this comes up a lot if Clemson doesn't win. They're not caught up to the modern day of college football. They got to start getting NIL. They got to get portal. But step back for a second. That roster in August we all looked at, there are a lot of people that thought, okay, Clemson's going to win the national championship, Penn State. Clemson was the team.
Yep.
So it's not like there's a shortage of talent on that roster. To me, Antonio Williams, their receiver going down week 1, has really affected this offense in a very negative way. Their quarterback, Cade Klubnik, third-year starter, at times doesn't look like a third-year starting quarterback. So they can right the ship and they can win a lot of games. But these first 3 weeks, it's been a surprise because of the way the offense has looked with Cade Klubnik not performing. And I think Antonio Williams not being there has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, agreed.
So he blamed Cade Klubnik.
I think first off, he
mentioned him several times.
Sure.
And he did mention the injury to the receiver, but at the same time, he mentioned Cade a bunch of times. Cade doesn't play defense though.
I don't disagree.
He is very up and down, but he doesn't play defense, and neither has Clemson like they're supposed to.
I don't think it is unfair. I said on I think BetMGM last night, and I will say it again here. I think Cade Klubnik is the disappointment of college football. Clemson is the disappointment of college football. Cade's the disappointment of college football. And it's true, right? That's not, again, this is another one of those spots where I am not denigrating Cade Klubnik, the person, the student athlete, the guy. I'm not doing that. But as a quarterback, a third-year starter, as labeled there by Kirk Herbstreit, no, he's not good enough right now. And that is part of the problem, discussion, issue, whatever you want to call it. And I don't have a problem with saying that. So I think Kirk kind of nailed the end there, which is, listen, this is a team that came into the year as a national championship pick. You know who I know that? Because I did it. That was my pick on nationally syndicated radio. That's who I picked to win the Natty, because I believed in Dabo Swinney and the roster that was constructed even without the portal. Now, could they have filled in some holes? Yes. Better running back, although Adam Randall is getting better game by game. I'll give him credit. Better offensive line? Absolutely. Upgrade a couple of spots on the defense? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I would say a lack of development and a lack of in-game coaching are the hamstrings here. Those are both things directly under Dabo's control. And if they are both under your control, when you get on the radio show, don't hide behind anything else, regardless of what it is. Wouldn't you tell your players take ownership? It feels like it's not taking ownership, but maybe that's just me. All right, hour number 4, Dabo free hour. We'll talk about the SEC and ACC scheduling stuff. We'll get to the NFL news, and I didn't get to it yesterday because we were busy, but we got to talk about Bill Belichick for a second. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Bill Belichick won Super Bowls because of Tom Brady. If there was a Tom Brady of sports flashes, it's Lonzo.
Not. I would should have talked about Jordan more so than that. I'm talking about Belichick's girlfriend. I'm sure that's what we're going to be talking about. The Detroit Lions improved to 2-1 with a 38-30 win over the Ravens on Monday night. Baltimore had the ball down a field goal with minutes to play, but Derrick Henry's third fumble in 3 games allowed Detroit to pad the lead. David Montgomery starred for the Lions, rushing for 151 yards and a pair of touchdowns, and Jahmyr Gibbs added 2 more on the ground. The Atlanta Braves were eliminated from the playoffs last weekend, but have been white hot down the stretch, winning 9 consecutive games with last night's 11-5 win over the Nationals. Atlanta had 14 hits, including a Ronald Acuna Jr. home run. That's pretty good. Auburn basketball coach Bruce Pearl stepped down unexpectedly yesterday after guiding Auburn to its second ever Final Four appearance. Pearl has been with the Tigers for 11 years. His son Steven was immediately promoted to head coach and given a 5-year contract. It's exactly what I was thinking, James. We shall see. I don't think he said Dabo free guarantee, but, you know, it was implied.
Your access to cutting-edge pain relief just got even easier. QC Kinetics now offering virtual consultations for new patients. Hey, it's Rob Brown. If you are living with chronic joint pain, you can now meet with a QC Kinetics medical professional from the comfort of your own home. This all-new telemedicine platform is an exciting and time-saving option. It can either be by phone or video conference, and you will get one-on-one attention to evaluate your situation. If you're a candidate for regenerative medicine, you can get your treatment scheduled on the spot and be on your way to lasting relief. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in cellular-level regenerative medicine. Their treatments can restore and repair damaged joint tissue using natural growth factors, not drugs, not steroids, and definitely not surgery. You have heard about QC Kinetics for years. They have treated thousands of people here with lasting results. And
By the way, Steven, I think the mustache got the approval. I don't think it's going anywhere because he shaved his cheeks where it looked like he was growing the beard back, which I mentioned yesterday, and now it's clean. So I think we're stuck with it. I don't want to get used to it.
With over 35 years of helping clients navigate divorce. Divorce touches all areas of your life: your home, savings, retirement, and of course, kids. So when you find yourself facing divorce, you need a partner you can count on.
If you are facing divorce, contact Cordell and Cordell today at 1-855-GET-LEGAL. That's 1-855-GET-LEGAL. 55 Beatty Greenville.
This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Grainger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. All so that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRAINGER.
How about we don't talk about anything that starts with a D?
For the ones who get it done.
No defense on the Rob Brown Show.
We already knew that. It's all, all gas, no brakes. And if it's all gas, no brakes, I mean, it's all offense.
Did you know about their giant international local farm partnerships, curbside pickup, wine department, or that they donate 3,956 meals a day to local food banks? Oh, no, you do. It's all in the bag.
Yeah, that's been mentioned before, Stephen. It's definitely a possibility.
Greenville County Animal Care can help. Just text kittens to 864-467-3950 and find out what to do next. Or check out greenvillepets.com. That's the sound of James adding long-lasting Gain scent boosters to his laundry this morning. Several hours later, James sniffs the irresistible scent of Gain on his shirt. Gain. Several hours later, James has even caught the attention.
The first day I showed up with the mustache was Courtney it was her first day out of town last week. Chris Lewis texted and said, allegedly Courtney's on vacation. Are we sure Rob didn't? Or I think it actually may have been you, Steven. And said, are we sure she's not tied up to some train tracks somewhere? One of you called me a murderer. One of you said I tied my wife up to some train tracks and giggled. And at least 2 different people asked if I was in the Epstein files. She did get home yesterday and see it for the first time. And she landed on, I haven't made up my mind yet. However, her sister-in-law or her sister and brother-in-law are fans. And I don't know if this is because they're genuinely fans or they're just fans of aggravating her, which both are equally possible. But we have decided that all the men in the family will be going mustachioed for the Thanksgiving holiday this year. I'm pretty excited about that. All right, since the last hour-ish or so have been a little contentious, I want to get into something else because yesterday a conversation took over my friend's group text, my little group text that I'm in with the boys. A conversation erupted over a social media clip that got posted. Now, it's kind of a long clip, so I'm not going to play all of it. But the Detroit Lions posted a social media clip yesterday. And the social media clip that got posted yesterday from the Detroit Lions asked a question of the players. This is like becoming a thing that social media teams are doing for teams. Like you have a whiteboard with a question on it. You set a camera over it, and you just have the players respond to that question as they are coming in from practice or going out to the practice field or coming in off the parking lot, whatever. The question that got posted for the Detroit Lions to answer was sock, cleat, cleat, or sock, cleat, as in which order do you put them on your feet?
Gotta be sock, cleat, cleat. If you do sock, cleat, you're messed up. Is it sock, cleat? Gotta be. Yeah. Weird if you do it any other way. Yeah.
Sock, cleat. If somebody do sock, cleat, what's wrong with them?
Sock, cleat should just be jail time. We're keeping bare toes on the ground for longer than they need to be.
Yeah, it's socks.
Socks, cleat.
Yeah, sock, cleat. Yeah,
sock, cleat. Whoever does sock, cleat is wrong. It's the top. It's sock, cleat.
Yeah, one at a time. That's the same.
It's sock, cleat. Sock, cleat.
It's sock, cleat.
If you go sock, cleat, there's something wrong with you. It's got to be sock, cleat.
I feel like if you go sock, cleat, you're weird. Like, no way you put one sock on, one cleat on, then go put the next sock on, next cleat.
Sock, cleat. Right sock, then left sock, left cleat, right cleat. And when I walk into the game and practice, I have two socks on already.
Yeah.
If I'm changing socks, I'm still going to go sock, cleat.
Yeah. Got it.
You're delusional, you know.
Sock, cleat. Huh? There's no way you do that, DT.
So they asked about 20 different players, sock, cleat, or sock, cleat. Of all of them, one guy said sock, cleat. And when he did, three other players in the frame all gave him the Jim Halpert turn to camera. And one guy went, what? Other than that, consensus, sock, cleat.
Yeah,
so you a sock, shoe guy?
Dude, don't put that weirdness on me as far as socks. The only person I've ever seen go sock shoe is a little kid. And then they were immediately schooled about, no, we put both socks on, then we put both shoes on. It just makes its perfect sense. Why you would go the other way, I do not understand.
I totally agree. But here's the thing, and this is where the conversation took over yesterday with me and some of the fellas after this video got kicked around. We were like, this is one of those things that I don't think, it's kind of like knowing which urinal to use in the bathroom. Like you never get told this. I have to work under the assumption that it's just one of those things that you observe as you are growing up, one of those things that you watch other people do and you absorb it, though you are not actively aware that you are absorbing that information. You don't think about it. It's just you see everybody do it this way, and so you kind of fall into the thing. But with sock, shoe, because I am absolutely and entirely sock, shoe guy. Both socks go on, then both shoes go on. And we were having this discussion yesterday about why is that the norm? Because there were about, I think it was me and I think there's like 6 of my college fraternity brothers that are in one chat, in one text thread that dates back to like 2009. And we are all over the political spectrum. We are all over every spectrum of life. Very diverse fraternity of dorks. We're from all over the place. And this one was consensus. It's sock, sock, shoe, shoe. And we were like, I asked the question. I was like, why does it make more sense, though? Like, if you really don't just go reaction, this is how I do it, so that's the right way. Why does it make more sense? And the answer I got was because when I have both socks on, I want to make sure I have a uniform feel on both feet, right? Like if one sock is too loose or the other sock's pulled up too high or there's too much tension or like, you know how sometimes you put it on and like the little seam that tells where the toes go, it's like twisted around your foot a little bit. I need to be able.
My daughter would it would take so much extra time because she had to get that seam just.
It's got to be right. And the thing is, if I have to adjust the sock, I need to make sure that both socks have the same feel to them. And then the same is true with the shoe. Like if one of my shoes is tied tighter than the other shoe, I have to stop my day to correct it. Because if I don't, my combo OCD ADHD is going to go shoe, 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 shoe. It's all my brain will allow me to dial in on. You could be like, I could be sitting in a room where somebody is saying, Rob Brown, we have the cure to cancer and we're only giving it to you. And if my shoes were of different tightness on my feet, I would totally miss out on the ability to save the world because I'd be just locked in on, I got to fix my shoes. I got to fix my shoes. I've been having meetings with the boss where I have to like do the casual, like put one foot up on my knee thing and then like try to tie it without making it obvious that I'm like dialed in on tying my shoe instead of this very important business thing that you're trying to tell me right now. So I get it. I need to make sure my shoes or my socks, when they are both on and are both accessible, are right where I need them to be. They're at the same space on my foot. The little toe laces are exactly symmetrical, right? The ankle is fit smoothly into the little ankle groove of the sock. And then when I go with shoes, I got to make sure the shoes are both correct. The tongues of the shoes are pulled up to the same amount. I've got to make sure they are tied to the same tightness. I've got to make sure because I'm a no-show sock guy, all right? Like you don't see my socks. I'm not a sock guy. I mean, I'm a sock guy, but you don't see my socks.
I think you're taking it a step further than what it was a pretty simple question and you've gone
but again,
further.
It is odd that of like 20-ish players, 19 said sock, sock, cleat, cleat. When I asked the boys, consensus, sock, sock, shoe, shoe. And because I'm a psychopath, I want to know the reason that it is like 99% sock, sock, shoe, shoe, and very, very little sock, shoe, and especially when sock, shoe get you judged and lambasted that way.
Well, it's also, if you're in a locker room and for some reason you have to stand up, even with both socks on and one cleat on, the height difference can cause a problem. So, you got.
Yeah, but again, like, isn't that's kind of what I'm driving at. It's about making sure that you have the uniformity of feel from both socks on both feet and then with both shoes on both feet. It's very important.
I don't know that it's necessarily taught in every family, but sometimes you do have to correct, like I said, a child who thinks that, it's okay to do that.
See, but here's the thing. This is why it's important.
And eventually they'll just decide, okay, I know you told me to do that. I'm going to do it this way anyway. But I haven't seen that part happen. I think once they're taught, if they need teaching, they'll keep it that way.
But here's the thing.
I'm surprised you, being the rebel that you are, defiant in all things, that you didn't just decide, well, I'm going to be different and go.
Yes, between the two of us, that's me for sure.
I'm a company man, dude. I don't know what you're talking about.
Here's the thing. Like, I get it. But at the same time, you just said multiple times that is something worth correcting in a child.
Yes.
If a child went sock, shoe, you just said you would correct them that's wrong.
Oh, I have.
Why is it wrong?
And this, because this is the way.
Right, but why?
That's just because why do you teach anyone anything, especially a parent to a child or maybe a parent to a grandchild? It's because this is the way that you do it. This is the norm of society, I suppose. And so you pass that on that way. And one reason why.
Right, but even if it's.
Wait. Let me finish. the one guy who said he did it differently, how did he get looked at?
Oh, they went, what?
Right. You don't want your kid to be that guy.
But
so you're going to teach him the right way.
You just described it as a societal norm. Why? Why is it a societal norm? Why is it that? Because I have never had this discussion before in my life. I've never heard this discussion. But once I had it, I was like, I am curious. And then once I started asking, it was like, everybody sock, shoe, shoe. How did it get that way? Like, there's got to be some phenomenon behind
to go
it.
even further, is this just an American thing? Do other countries also go sock, shoe, shoe?
It's a great question I don't know the answer to. It's a very good question that I do not know the answer to. Is this something, if we go to France, do they go, les sock, shoe?
I'm going to send a text and find out what they do in Ireland.
Yeah, find out if this is an Irish phenomenon.
I'm just curious.
Like, how did we get to the point that not only is it, as Lonzo described it, a societal norm worth correcting a child if they do it the wrong way, to the point that when someone says sock, shoe, we go, what are you, a weirdo? Are you a psychopath? What are we talking about here? I don't know. I heard that and I was like, that's weird. That's weird. That's a weird thing. All right. Speaking of weird things, this one I've been carrying around for a while. This isn't really the audio blitz because it's only a couple of clips, but I like this one a lot. Nebraska's basketball team held their media day last week. Nebraska's basketball team had their media day, and to the podium went Fred Hoiberg. Fred Hoiberg is the head coach of the Nebraska basketball team. So Fred Hoiberg got to the podium, and Fred was answering some questions from the assembled media when this happened.
How that's a dilemma. What was can you give me the answer on that? Because I usually get up at about 1 for the first time, and I think it's something. Anyway, I lost track. Where were we?
So Fred Hoiberg, as he is giving his answer, somehow triggers the voice search function on his phone or somebody's phone, and the phone says, what happens when the prostate expands and starts to, and then somebody would clipped it, like turned their phone off before it got there. And Fred Hoiberg responded with a holy, and then said, but while you're at it, can you give me the answer? Because, we're all getting a little older in here. I got to get up around 1 a.m. to pee every night, which, happens to the best of us if we're keeping it a buck here.
Probably all of us.
I hope so. But it is definitely, I am at the point now where I will never get 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep again in my life.
Right.
It will never happen.
Right.
I have, of all the things that come along with being 40 and the changes that come at 40, the one that I am I have just accepted it as my reality. I am never again in my life getting 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep, because even when last week, there was a night last week, I think it was Wednesday. In fact, I know it was Wednesday. It was the first night the wife was gone. I was bored because my wife's always there. And I love when she's around. I was bored. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I sat at 7 o'clock. I'm like, I guess I'll just go lay in the bed and, watch football stuff on YouTube until it's time to go to sleep or whatever, thinking that was going to be, 10:30, 11 o'clock, like it normally is. So I went in bed and laid down at 7, and at 8 o'clock, I was I think I'm going to go to bed. I guess I'll just go to sleep. It's 8 p.m. I'll get 8 hours tonight. I passed out at 8 o'clock thinking I'm getting a full 8 hours of sleep. I was up at midnight and then at 2:30 because I had to pee. I'm never getting 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep again. So I appreciate that Fred took that moment and was you know what? Let's have a learning experience. Let's all learn something here together today.
Knowing you and me and certain other people in this building, we actually absolutely would react.
I'd have done the same damn thing.
Yeah.
I'd have done the same thing.
Let
They'd have been my bad.
Dude, let that thing play.
Yeah. My bad, coach. Sorry about that. I'd have been like, nope, don't worry about it. In fact, why don't, since you have your phone out already, you go ahead and read me the answer. Maybe I'll learn something today. Maybe I'll learn something. Jersey Joe texted the show, said, wait till you get to 61. Oh, like I said, Joe, I've accepted it, and I am very much aware. Not only is it not going to get better, it is inevitably going to get worse. Like, there will come a point where my bedtime will be moved up, not because I want it to be, but because, well, I'm going to have my night interrupted by having to pee twice anyway. So, like, I might as well try to get more sleep since it's going to be broken up. Because I'm also the dude that if I get up, Zoe, and I got to get up and, like, go to the bathroom, and, like, if the wife's asleep, I got to go out to the hallway bathroom because I don't want to wake her up, like flushing the toilet, running the water to wash my hands because she has to wash my hands because I'm not an animal. And then I go back, like, the bed has lost all the comfy to me at that point, right? Like, all the comfy. When you pull that blanket up, all the comfy's out of that bed. It is going to take me some time to get back to sleep at that point. It is when those eyes open and I'm like, damn it.
Wait, you have to open your eyes?
Yeah.
Do you have to turn the light on too?
No,
Okay.
because, well, we've got a
night light.
No, we've got an air purifier in the room that has a little light on it. So we got that. And then in the bathroom, we have we do have a night light in the bathroom. Because you're like, if you go full lights, your body's like, oh, it's go time now. So you like, that's just science. You keep the light low so that your body hopefully doesn't break out of the sleep. But for me, the problem is, like, once I get back in the bed, all the comfy is out of it, man. Like, it's just not, I gotta reset the comfy-o-meter before I can fall back asleep. If I get up to pee, I'm talking like it's 15, 20 minutes before I'm going back to sleep, which just, at that point, I might as well get the hell up.
I just tell myself I'm dreaming, and then I'm good.
That doesn't work for me. I wish it did. All right. Let's talk. Okay. We got to talk about this Bill Belichick thing when we come back. I'm sorry. It's gotten out of control. And it is at this point just a warning to everybody else. If you didn't see what happened on the field during North Carolina's warm-ups before they got their asses whipped by UCF this weekend.
I thought they were on the sideline. You sure they?
No, the team was on the field.
Oh, okay. All right.
Bill was just off doing his and her own little thing. We'll talk about that next on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
All this talk of having to go, I've had to go for the last 5 minutes.
All right, guys. We'll be right back. So Lonzo can go. PRV. The North Carolina Tar Heels this past weekend were on the road down in O-Town, Orlando, Florida, to take on the UCF Golden Knights. Now, UCF is by no means a bad football program. They're not what they were a handful of years ago when they were making some shock bowl games. But they're not a bad program. So a loss on the road at Central Florida is not the end of the world. However, a 34-9 loss in which you were trailing 20-3 at the half and gained no points of ground in the second half. You lost the third quarter by 1 and the fourth quarter by 7 for a 34-9 scoreline. A loss in which you switched quarterbacks because Gio Lopez, your opener, was 11 of 14, but everything was underneath and he was picked twice. And your backup, Max Johnson, you'll remember Max Johnson, former Texas A&M Aggie, former LSU Tiger, went to North Carolina last year, had that horrific leg injury. There were thoughts that Max Johnson may never play another snap of football. Is actually probably outplaying Gio Lopez right now. A combined 154 yards of passing offense, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. On the ground, 63 total yards of rushing with 0 touchdowns. And you ended up turning the ball over, I think, twice in that game, if I recall correctly. It was not good for the Tar Heels of North Carolina. Losing that game, no problemo. Losing that game in an embarrassing fashion, muy problemo. So that was bad enough of itself. Oh, by the way, just in case you want to know the other side of the football, the North Carolina defense gave up 223 passing yards and a touchdown to Taven Jackson, the UCF quarterback. And they allowed 143 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns to the UCF Golden Knights. Again, all of that was already bad enough. And then a picture started circulating after the game was over. The picture that was circulating, if you did not see it, is actually on my Twitter account at the Rob Brown Show. You'll have to scroll back a little bit, but just in case you can't, I'm going to go ahead and put it up on the live stream now. If you're not watching the stream, you should every day at facebook.com/thefanupstate, the Fan Upstate on YouTube, the Fan Upstate on Twitter, the Rob Brown Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. Here is the picture that started making its way around the internet if you're watching on the stream. If you're not, I'll leave it up for a minute for you to go see it. In the picture, in the top portion, you will notice that the North Carolina Tar Heel football program is actively warming up to play a football game. It is the offensive line. They are clearly doing their, high knees, karaoke, crisscross, lower body warm-up, stretchy kind of stuff. You remember high school football. And in the foreground is one Bill Belichick. And Billy-O is talking to the girlfriend, to Jordan. Now, I personally do not care what Jordan is wearing. Jordan is obviously an attractive young woman, and she is in style and in fashion. A lot of people are making comments about it. A very short North Carolina blue and darker blue skirt, an off-the-shoulder shirt, and knee-high white stiletto boots. Obviously, there is a reason and a particular genre of fashion that people are referring to her being dressed in on the sidelines. I don't care. She's a hot chick. Wear whatever you want to wear. Have at it. I don't care. However, the problem I have with the photo is what is happening in that. And I understand that a photo, although the old expression is a picture says 1,000 words, I think it is very easy, as somebody who has done both media and photography for a very long time. It's not all that complicated to get a picture that tells a story that is a lie. However, in what world, if you are North Carolina, when your team at 1-2 already on the season, in what world are you good with your head coach standing 8 yards off the sideline while your team is getting ready to warm up? North Carolina is only going to be favored in like 3 games for the rest of this year. I don't even think this was one of them. If I recall correctly, I think UCF was favored by like 1.5 points. Like, not big, but you were a dog. In what world is your head coach standing on the sideline, chatting up his 50-some-odd years younger than him girlfriend, instead of, I don't know, hear me out on this, coaching the dadgum football team? Okay.
Head coaches don't generally run drills. That's what the assistant coaches do during this time.
I would love for you to go find me a video, and I'm going to keep it to college here because the NFL may or may not be different. But I would love you to go find me a picture, a video, whatever, of Ryan Day chatting it up over on the sideline, having a wonderful old time, and not on the field when his team is warming up to play. That is when you are talking to players.
I bet there's video or pictures of Urban Meyer doing that.
Well, if that's the standard you're gunning for, and for the record, even if that's true, which I don't think that it is, not in pregame warmups, even if that is the case, when Hoodie goes and wins a couple of natties, he can do whatever the hell he wants.
Okay, so as far as this goes, I'm not defending or criticizing like you are. How is this hurt their chances to win or lose the game?
I will go find you a video that I know exists because I've seen it of Nick Saban during warmups. Where you think Nick was? Standing on the field, walking around between the rows of players, talking them up, giving them some last-minute coaching, whatever.
I don't think there's a standard as to how or rules that say this is how you do this.
So
again, I don't see how this determined whether they won or lost the game. I don't see how this took away from the game. It wasn't during the game. This was during pregame. And I just don't. And I think, and this is my opinion, if she's ugly, no one cares. I still think that's the deal.
Well, let's start with respectfully. If she was ugly, Bill ain't dating her. All right, let's just keep dudes here.
I don't know that. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. We can just all agree that she's pretty. So.
She is a conventionally attractive woman. She's a very attractive woman. I am going with respectfully, not to be a classic old locker room bro. If she's not a 10, Bill's not dating a girl 50 years younger than him if she's not a 10. I just don't but even put that to the side. That's irrelevant. I don't care if that was his 50-year-old girlfriend. I don't care. This spot in this moment, when your team going into this game is reeling, you have been embarrassed. Your start to the regime. Nobody expected undefeated. Nobody expected a run. But like they expected your team to look, I don't know, competent, and they don't look anything like a competent franchise. In fact, I would go one step further and say I would be willing to bet right now if I gave the DeLorean to the UNC Board of Governors and said you can hop in and 88 miles an hour go back to where you didn't fire Mac Brown and keep him around, or you can stay out of the DeLorean and keep what you got in the hoodie right now. My sneaky suspicion is that the majority of those Board of Governors are getting the hell in Doc Brown's rig and taking it back to the future. That's my guess, because this sucks.
Rob Brown, self-declared knower of ball. If Jordan is not on the sidelines, if he's not having interaction with his girlfriend, do they win this game?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Obviously, it affected the game.
But here's the problem.
Because you're bringing it up like it affected the game.
This is something that falls into the same headbutting argument you and I have been having for years of micro versus macro. It ain't even about this game. Like, you lost this game. And maybe being out there on the 50 and talking the boys up and hyping them up and giving them some coaching and, hey, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that, respond, whatever. Maybe that changes the outcome of the game. But that still doesn't address the overall situation, which is not only does your team stink out loud, which fine, we knew it was always going to be a tough road to hoe for anybody who steps into those shoes. You stink out loud, and your entire program is not, and this is a knower of ball statement, is absolutely, unquestionably, and objectively worse than it was last year. You're worse.
So I know this isn't the case, but so you're not saying it's because there's a female on the sideline.
No.
Okay.
I'm saying
is it because of PDA? So
well,
no
first
PDA.
First off, hang on. Let me address it. I will answer that question in a more thorough and comprehensive way. We all have, whether you agree or it has now been said a couple times in the chat, she was just asking for concession stand money.
It's funnier coming from your brother.
It is funnier coming from my brother. You are correct. We are, I won't say all, because frankly, I don't even know if Lonzo agrees with this or not. But a large number of us are of the belief that as of now, Jordan is running Bill's life. Like running it. And if Jordan's running Bill's life over here, and he's getting paid as much as he is to run the football team, and the football team is a cluster bleep right now, then those dots are connected. It is not because of her age or her looks or her gender. It is very simply, this person seems to be on the outside looking in, and I'm willing to say this is my belief, pulling all the strings in Bill's life, down to and including telling him to shut up when he's doing interviews as the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. We've seen it on camera happen. So, when we've seen that happen, and it has become arguably, whether it's to Bill or not, it is, but whether it's to Bill or not, the biggest distraction in college football, consensus, and this is happening, and then your team goes out and gets that ass whipped. Yeah, it's a bad look top to bottom. The tweet I said was, they thought they were getting the hoodie ultimate professional. Instead, they got this old guy who's doing this while his team is getting ready to play. UNC went from a mediocre team that was always close to the next step to a joke. I got $5, says he's one and done.
Okay, so in your tweet, you said this was unprofessional.
Yep.
Explain to me where are the standards that say that this is unprofessional? Does North Carolina have a problem with it? Have they banned her from the sideline?
Have we?
So the institute that he works for has deemed this acceptable. So that would make it. So that makes it professional because the bosses say it's okay.
Why?
Why not?
Because otherwise he quits, and they are up further Bleep Creek without a paddle.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
You don't
I don't
think
it's that dire.
You and I have both worked around divas in this industry who get their way because they threaten to leave if they don't.
We might be.
We might be doing it right now.
Both of us working around a diva right now.
Right now, absolutely.
Right this
All
moment.
Right? I'm willing to acknowledge I'm a diva.
Yeah.
All right.
Me too. Like I mean, look at the hair, dude.
Bill is a diva to some degree, in my opinion. This is. Let me put it this way. It is one thing if I was to say, hey, Rolonzo, we're going to go to a break a couple minutes early because I want to go outside and lay the Mac Daddy down on my wife. It's another thing if the show's in the tanker, we don't have 3 crystal trophies looking for number 4, a bunch of awards and good ratings that say we're not that. Then you'd go, dude, you're taking away from the job? Like, yeah.
No, I'd be like, dude, I won't even have to extend the break, right?
Not this one. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. What up, girl? Oh, man. All right, let me take that off. How do I get that off the stream? There it is. I sound like an old guy. How do I get it off the screen?
I'm pushing the button.
I'm pushing the button.
Nothing's happening.
I can say for certain I am not a cat, Your Honor. Be right back, guys. It is the Rob Brown Show. It is the Fan Upstate. It is Rob. That's me. It is Lonzo. That is he. And we are glad to have you every AM from 6 till 10 here on the Fan Upstate. You want to sneak in here down the stretch? You're welcome to do it. 844-326-3663. 844-FANFONE. Talk a little baseball on the way out here to wrap up the show. The Atlanta Braves, an 11-5 win over the Nationals last night. Chris Sale makes his return. He pitches again. He gets a 5-inning, 3-hit, 5-run victory credited to him. That is the 9th consecutive win for these Atlanta Braves. And, I got a handful of texts from Bravo's buddies last night that were like, yo, why now? Like, why now? Like, where was this? And I have a couple of answers for you. The first is I absolutely believe in the concept of pressing. In fact, of pressing too hard. That is to say, I think it is a reality for everybody to some degree, but certainly in athletics. I think it is a reality that when things are not going right, we, by nature, are inherently of the mindset of, I have to try harder. Well, if it's not going right, I have to try harder. And trying harder isn't always the answer. Sometimes trying smarter is the answer. Sometimes changing what you're doing, how you're doing, is the answer. I think that because the Braves got out of the gate with a miserably bad start going 0-6 on a left coast swing to start the year, and especially considering 0-6 against National League teams that were expected to be your primary competition for playoff spots, I think they started pressing then. I think they got to a point then that guys on the team started changing who they are as players. I think you saw guys like Matty Olson going, I have to go back to being a 50-plus home run guy. I got to go back to being a guy that racks up over 100 RBIs. I think you started seeing middle infielders, because how many times this year do we complain about Ozzie Albies? I think you started seeing a spot where guys in the middle infield started feeling like they had to go try to get an all-star nomination in the first 3 weeks of the year. I think this team started to press a little bit. And while they were pressing, I think that they were over-managed to some degree. Sometimes, and I think that this is something that most coaches would agree with, sometimes you just got to figure out what you're good at and let the dudes do what the dudes do. Sometimes you just got to let the fellas play a little bit. Sometimes you got to remind them, yo, it's a game. This is fun. Go out there, do your thing. Just do what you do, man. Like, how many sports movies over the years have we seen where there's an inspirational, why are you trying to be them? Let's just be us. Best of all time. When Hans shows up with the Mighty Ducks jerseys for Team USA. Where are you from? Dwayne Robinson, from Texas. When the cows are in the barn and the horses are turning pasture circles in the pasture, ducks fly together. Quack, 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 quack. How many times have we seen the entire lesson is just be you and do what you do? You can't do anything better than whatever it is that you do. I know it is very cliche, but it's also accurate, man. Like, this is it's the same conversation we had post-pandemic when everybody was like, oh, we should go let people work from home. Because it is now proven that people working from home where they're comfortable are more productive. It's been proven. You're more productive at home. Well, not everybody, but for a large contingent of people are more productive at home. Why? Because they're in their element where they're comfortable doing what they want to do or doing what they need to do the way they want to do it instead of feeling like they are somewhere just so they can be overseen and micromanaged. It's proven. So with all of that being said, I think Brian Snicker throughout the course of this year overmanaged this team. When it started getting bad, all of a sudden we start seeing lineup changes and we start seeing guys moved around in the field and we start seeing these weird situations with pitchers getting jumped around. And don't get me wrong, like obviously injuries are a big deal. The Atlanta Braves were one of the most injured teams in Major League Baseball this year. So yes, anybody who doesn't acknowledge that injuries were a huge part of the season for the 2025 Braves are wrong. Of course they were. But once those injuries started impacting the lineup, it was like Snit over-adjusted. So this past weekend, the Braves get eliminated from the MLB postseason, and what happens? The lineup goes back to the lineup it should have been. The boys aren't pressing. They just go out there and play ball. And just like that, they reel off 9 wins in a row. Granted, maybe it's not against the best competition since the majority of those, including last night's, was against the Nationals, who are not good. But I would also point out, you're only outpacing the Nationals on the season by a handful of games, right? So like it's a team that was more with you than you were past them. All of that being said, I think once the Braves got eliminated, I think the Braves quit pressing. I think they went and said, all right, well, now we just go do what we do, right? Like if you are a guy who is a breaking ball hitter and you've been sitting on fastballs trying to up your heater rate this year, go back to swinging at the breaking balls. You know about most of the time when and where they're coming. Just go swing at the breaking balls. If you are a dinger hitter, if you're Matty Ice Baby Olsen and you're a power guy, go swing for power. Like, we don't need you to play small ball anymore. It doesn't matter. Wins don't matter. Wins and losses don't matter. They're like points on whose line is it anyway. They don't matter. Just go out there and do your thing. And what I hope is the lesson, what I hope is the takeaway from this 2025 season is I hope that next year, this team does not feel like it needs to press if they get off to a slow start. Hopefully they don't get off to a slow start. You learned how impactful a slow start can be this year, but I hope next year what this team realizes, whether it is managed by Brian Snicker or Skip Schumacher or anybody else, what I hope is that next year this team just goes, we're just going to be us. We're just going to be us. We're just going to do our thing. We're not going to press. We're not going to overdo it. Let's just go play Braves ball because Braves ball is fun and entertaining, enjoyable, and it wins.
And now, the Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
All right, before we get to what's Xing, I've just heard back from our Irish correspondent about our question that we asked earlier. Our Irish correspondent said in the island of Ireland, it is sock, boot.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's universal. Like, I think the people who do sock shoe are like, I mean, I'm sorry, that's weird. It's just a weird way to handle it.
Yeah, it's not. It's
just a weird way to do it.
It's got to be looked at. All right.
It's kind of like if you picked up tongs and you didn't click them together 2 or 3 times before you picked up the steak.
Unless they're those ones for the grill that are really hard to.
Oh no, I got my steak grilling tongs and I do it with those too.
Okay.
Then I feel like a damn transformer.
There you go. All right. The first thing that's Xing is Bruce Pearl.
Bruce Pearl Xing because, as we mentioned, I don't remember, somewhere earlier in the show. Whatever, maybe we didn't. Bruce Pearl, after 11 years at the helm for the Auburn
Tigers.
Tigers.
Sports Flash.
That's what it was.
You never had time to get.
Well, I'm also like
giving you the chance.
We
right
had
now,
so much with the Dabo thing. Bruce Pearl, after 11 years with the Auburn Tigers, took the Auburn Tigers for their second ever Final Four appearance last year. Just retired yesterday. He just said, "That's it. I'm done." Now, there's 2 interesting things about this. Number one, he's moving into a consulting role with Auburn. Part of that is because reason 2, they just gave the keys to his son. Stephen Pearl is going to take over as head coach. No interim period, no tryout required. Hilarious that the guy who a couple of months ago during the draft was talking about how awful and horrible nepotism is in the world. Suddenly his son just gets the job.
I'm sure he earned it though.
Oh yeah, so. No. You'll notice that a lot of people, when they complain about stuff, what they mean is your thing is bad. When we do it, it's fine. That's a different story. Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm also going to go ahead and tell you right now, Bruce Pearl will be a politician in Alabama within the next 3 weeks. Book that. He saw what Tuberville did. He's like, I want that too.
All right. The next thing that's Xing is Aaron Glenn.
Aaron Glenn Xing because is it the sideline celebration?
It is.
And it's not just that. It's a particular sideline celebration video edit.
Yes, they have put Earth, Wind, and Fire behind him.
There is a video going around. I will put it up on my social here in a minute. We found it last night, and I mean it when I tell you my wife and I were laughing in bed at this video. Now, we got married on September 21st for 2 reasons. Number 1, I'll never forget my anniversary. Number 2, half our wedding was done set. That theme is already done. We love that song. That song's an all-time banger. And even if you didn't get married on September 21st, it's a slapper. Somebody took the video of Aaron Glenn doing his little we just scored a turnover touchdown dance on the sideline, and they slapped 21st night of September over it. And it's a banger, dude.
All right.
It works perfect.
There have been several Earth, Wind, and Fire songs that they put over it, including
even better,
including Boogie Wonderland. I mean, they all kind of have the same groove to it, so it's going to work. I haven't heard it with the music. Now I'm going to have to check it out after the show.
Dude, I found it last night when I was grabbing stuff for the show today. And when I tell you I laughed out loud, I tapped the wife on the shoulder. I was like, yo, watch this. I played it for her. She laughed out loud. We watched it like 3 more times. It's friggin' hilarious.
All right. The next thing it's Xing is Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett Xing. There was a clip going around of him yesterday during their game this week in the win over the Packers, where he was just like, I'm kicking that ass. Like, let's keep doing what we're doing. I don't know if that's why he's trending.
Yeah, he's doing this thing that happens sometimes. He is Xing because he's really good.
Yeah, he is really good. And for the record, everybody was asking yesterday, and it's fair to say, everybody was asking yesterday why the Browns were able to win this game. I have a graph.
Oh, no.
Evaluating edge rushers when 1v1 on a blocker. In terms of double team percentage, Myles Garrett is double teamed more than any other edge rusher in the NFL, including Micah Parsons. But in terms of grade versus expectation, Myles Garrett, Lonzo, is in the corner upper right of this graph. He cannot be any better in terms of both drawing double teams and expected performance lever. Myles Garrett is right now the best player in the NFL.
Cleveland defense is no joke.
It's not a joke. You're not wrong.
All right. Speaking of one last thing that people are joking about, you're not going to like it, Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson played his ass off last night. Was running for his life because every time he turned it, I used this example earlier. I'll do it again really quickly. You ever get into a car accident? Every time you come to that intersection for the rest of your life, you're going to be on alert. That was Lamar last night because Aiden Hutchinson kept hitting him like a Buick. That's it. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you didn't, it's your own fault. Come back tomorrow. We'll try to do even better. I'm Rob. He's Lonzo. See you back here tomorrow on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. Later.
I mean, that's just some Bush League stuff.
We did it, everybody. Yes, puppy monkey baby. The guy with the mustache is the villain of the show.
Yeah, you can't do it that.
I don't have enough.
No, you got to do it like this. Yeah.
That's not. No, it's either twirl up or it's.
I don't know. It's like, well, anyway.
That's it for us, dudes. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoy the show. We enjoy bringing you the show. I always enjoy bringing the show.
The villain doesn't enjoy it.
I enjoy it every day.
The villain hates it.
Sometimes the villain just does what he does because he's evil, not for any purpose. Speaking of the wife, after she saw Crypto the Superdog yesterday, decided when she gets home from Charleston, she wants to watch Superman, and I'm very excited about it.
I watched it again yesterday. We watched it again yesterday. My wife and I. Nicholas Hoult did such a great job.
He did a great job.
He really did.
He did a great job.
I mean, especially at the end when he's crying.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, can't wait for that Buddy movie a year from now.
I can't wait for Supergirl. I'm so fired up about Supergirl. She walked in. Me and the dogs were on the couch. She got home from work. Me and the dogs were on the couch while I had it on. And she walked in when, without giving anything away, when Mr. Terrific has the Terrifiballs flying around.
Dude, it's been out for a while.
Yeah, that's fair enough. If it's a spoiler, it's on you now.
Let's be technical. It's T-Spheres.
Sorry, the T-Spheres are floating around. And when Crypto or when Superman realizes he can tell Crypto, oh, it's a ball. Like in the movie theater when I saw it, I was with like 4 or 5 of the boys. And when it realized it clicked, I just out loud went, it's a ball. And then Crypto started. My dogs were locked TF in on Crypto the super dog while I was watching this yesterday. She walked in. She like came in. They got all excited. I sat back down. I started the movie back up. She was like doing her stuff. She came back in. Second time she came in, dogs didn't even react. They were locked in on Crypto. And she's like, the dog looks like the best part of this movie. And I'm like, he is. 100% he is. The movie's great, and he is the best part of this movie. So now she's in on watching it just to watch Crypto the Wonder Dog or a Super Dog, and I don't blame her at all.
Wonder how much he's going to be in Supergirl.
I hope more.
He is her dog.
I hope more. Thanks for watching him. So good. I'm so excited to see.
Hopefully Lobo doesn't beat him up.
I want absolute degenerate Supergirl. I am here for it. Here for degenerate Supergirl.
You know, it's a heartfelt reason why she's that way. And before,
I'm sure.
Before it's over, she will no longer be a party girl.
No, I want party girl Supergirl. I want party girl Supergirl. I'm here for it. All right, that's it for us, dudes. We have to go have a meeting.
Yay.
So maybe we'll see you tomorrow.
Possibly.
Tune in and find out. Bye.